Hey there, storytellers and story lovers. This is Ben 10 What If. Prepare yourselves for today's incredible narrative. What if Ben 10 joined the Straw Hat Pirates? A quick reminder, your likes, comments, and subscriptions are the fuel that keeps this channel running. Thank you for being awesome. Let's begin this journey together. Chapter 1, Worlds Collide. Ben Tennyson skidded across the rooftop, his sneakers scraping against rough concrete as he narrowly avoided another blast of crackling energy. San Francisco's skyline glowed orange in the sunset behind him, but he had no time to appreciate the view. Getting tired, Ben Tennyson? Professor Kronos called out, his metallic exoskeleton whirring as he advanced. The scientist's once normal lab coat had been modified with glowing circuitry, and the dimensional displacement device on his chest pulsed with dangerous energy. All your transformations, all your aliens, and you're still just a boy running away. Who's running? Ben shot back, activating the Omnitrix on his wrist. The familiar green holographic display popped up, and he scrolled through his alien options with practiced speed. I'm just giving you room to embarrass yourself. Kronos fired another blast that Ben rolled away from, feeling the heat pass inches from his face. The attack hit an air conditioning unit, which exploded in a shower of sparks and steam. Dude, property damage much? Ben slammed his palm down on the Omnitrix. Green light enveloped his body as the transformation took hold. Let's see how you handle Heat Blast. The fiery alien form materialized where Ben had stood, flames licking across his molten rock body. Without hesitation, Heat Blast thrust his palms forward, sending a torrent of flames toward Kronos. The professor activated a shield from his exoskeleton, deflecting most of the fire but still staggering backward. Interesting, Kronos said, adjusting something on his wrist. But predictable. Predictable? I'll show you predictable. Heat Blast launched himself into the air on a platform of fire, circling around to attack from above. Kronos tracked him with calculating eyes. Your transformations have limits, Ben. I've studied them all. I've been preparing for this encounter for years. Heat Blast dive-bombed toward Kronos, preparing to unleash a massive fireball, when the professor's chest device began to pulse erratically. What the? Kronos looked down in alarm. No, not now. The calibration sequence isn't complete. The device emitted a high-pitched whine that made Heat Blast pause mid-attack. A sphere of swirling energy began expanding from Kronos' chest. What did you do? Heat Blast demanded, trying to back away but finding himself being pulled toward the growing vortex. This isn't my doing. Kronos shouted over the deafening hum. Something's interfering with the dimensional displacement field. It's becoming unstable. The vortex expanded rapidly, its edges crackling with lightning-like energy. Heat Blast tried to escape by shooting fire from his hands for propulsion, but the pull was too strong. If this thing collapses with us inside it, Kronos didn't finish his sentence as the vortex suddenly contracted, then exploded outward in a blinding flash of light. Heat Blast felt himself being stretched in impossible directions, his fiery form dissipating as the Omnitrix timed out at the worst possible moment. The last thing Ben saw was Kronos being pulled in a different direction through the ruptured dimensional corridor, screaming as he disappeared into the void. Then everything went black. Cold water splashed over Ben's face, jolting him awake. He sat up with a gasp, coughing and sputtering. Ugh, what hit me? He groaned, blinking water from his eyes. His clothes were soaked, and sand stuck to his arms and legs. The Omnitrix seemed intact on his wrist, but was currently in recharge mode, its face glowing a dull red. Ben finally focused on his surroundings and froze. This definitely wasn't San Francisco. He sat on a beach with blindingly white sand. Turquoise water stretched to the horizon, clearer than any ocean he'd ever seen. Behind him, a dense jungle of palm trees and exotic plants bordered the beach. The sun blazed overhead in a cloudless sky, suggesting it was around noon, hours after his fight with Kronos had started at sunset. Okay, either I got knocked out and someone dumped me in Hawaii, or Ben stared at his surroundings. Kronos's device actually worked. I'm somewhere else. Maybe even someone else. Ben checked the Omnitrix again. Still recharging. Without his aliens, he was just a regular teenager stranded who knows where. Gwen and Grandpa Max must be freaking out by now, he muttered, standing up and brushing sand from his clothes. His green jacket was torn at the shoulder, and his shoes were waterlogged. First priority, figure out where I am. Second priority, find civilization. Third priority, somehow get back home and stop Kronos, if he's even still a problem. A strange noise from the jungle made Ben freeze. It sounded like something large moving through the underbrush. Very large. Please be reindeer or something, Ben whispered, glancing at his still recharging Omnitrix. Just nice, normal wildlife. The trees at the edge of the jungle parted, and a creature emerged that made Ben's jaw drop. It looked like a cross between a tiger and a sea serpent, with scales covering its front half and fur on its back. It stood at least 15 feet tall, with gleaming yellow eyes that locked onto Ben immediately. Definitely not normal wildlife. Ben shouted, turning to run down the beach. The creature roared and gave chase, its massive paws kicking up sand as it pursued him. Ben sprinted as fast as he could, but the monster gained ground quickly. He glanced at the Omnitrix, still red, but maybe a bit brighter than before. He didn't have much time. Come on, he urged the device, diving behind a large rock as the creature swiped at him. Its claws scraped against stone, sending chips flying. Ben pressed himself against the rock, breathing hard, mind racing for solutions. The creature circled around, trapping Ben between itself and the ocean. It growled, a low rumbling sound that Ben felt in his chest. Nice kitty snake thing, Ben said, backing toward the water. I'm probably not very tasty anyway. The creature lunged. Ben dove to the side, rolling across the sand. He came up running but found himself cornered against a cliff face that extended into the water. The monster advanced slowly now, as if savoring its trapped prey. Ben glanced at the Omnitrix again. The red glow was fading, turning to green. Yes. Just in time. Ben activated the device as the creature pounced. The familiar green light enveloped him, and where Ben had stood, a new form appeared, a crystalline humanoid alien with a sharp, angular body. Diamond Head, the transformed Ben shouted, just as the creature crashed into him. Instead of being crushed, Diamond Head stood his ground, the creature's claws unable to penetrate his crystalline body. The monster recoiled in surprise. My turn, Diamond Head said, shifting his arm into a sharp blade. When the creature lunged again, he slashed across its snout, drawing a pained roar. Not so fun being on the receiving end, is it? The creature backed away, circling warily. Diamond Head kept his stance ready, blade arm extended. I don't want to hurt you anymore, he said to the beast. Just go back to the jungle and we'll call it even. The creature seemed to understand the threat if not the words. It growled once more, then turned and disappeared back into the dense foliage. Diamond Head relaxed slightly, transforming his arm back to normal. That was close. Better find civilization before more of those things show up. He began walking along the beach, keeping the ocean to his right and the jungle to his left. His crystalline body left distinct footprints in the sand, glinting in the bright sunlight. If Kronos got transported here too, I need to find him before he causes more trouble, Diamond Head muttered to himself. And if he didn't? I need to figure out how to get home without him. After walking for about half an hour, Diamond Head spotted something in the distance, a column of smoke rising above the trees. That has to be people, he said excitedly, picking up his pace. As he approached, he realized the smoke was coming from a small settlement on the other side of the island. But before he could reach it, the Omnitrix began beeping. No, not now. Diamond Head groaned as green light surrounded him again, returning him to his human form. At least I'm close to what looks like civilization. Ben continued toward the settlement with renewed caution. Without his alien forms, he was vulnerable again. The jungle beside him still rustled with unknown creatures. As he rounded a bend in the shoreline, Ben finally got a good look at the settlement, and stopped dead in his tracks. "That's not normal," he whispered. The settlement was actually a small port with a single ship docked there. But it wasn't any kind of ship Ben recognized from his time. It looked like something straight out of a pirate movie, with tall masts and billowing sails. The figurehead at the bow was particularly strange, a smiling lion or sun-like face. Either I've gone back in time, or... Ben didn't finish the thought as he noticed people moving around the ship and on the nearby beach. Their clothing confirmed his suspicion, these weren't modern people. Great. Stuck on an island with pirates. Just what I needed. Ben ducked behind some rocks to observe. He counted several figures, a man with green hair practicing with swords on the beach, a woman with orange hair mapping something at a small table, a long-nosed guy fiddling with what looked like a slingshot, and others moving on and off the ship. Most concerning was the tall skeleton wearing formal clothes and playing a violin. A skeleton? An actual walking, talking skeleton? Ben rubbed his eyes, but the skeleton was still there when he looked again. Okay, so definitely not just back in time. This is some other dimension entirely. Before Ben could decide on his next move, a tremendous crash came from the jungle behind him. Birds scattered into the air, and trees shook violently. Whatever was coming was much bigger than the creature he'd encountered earlier. The pirates on the beach turned toward the noise, instantly on alert. The green-haired swordsman grabbed his weapons, while a blond man in a suit emerged from the ship. A small furry creature, was that a raccoon wearing a hat, peeked out from behind a barrel. What now? Ben muttered, checking the Omnitrix. It was still recharging, the face glowing red. Come on, I need you. The trees at the jungle's edge exploded outward as a massive beast charged onto the beach. It looked like a rhinoceros but with the scales of a fish and 6 legs instead of 4. It was easily the size of a bus and seemed extremely angry. The pirates immediately sprang into action. The swordsman drew 3 blades, somehow holding one in his mouth. The blond man's leg began to glow as he spun in place. A young man in a red vest and straw hat stretched his arm, literally stretched it like rubber, to grab onto a tree branch. These people aren't normal either, Ben realized, watching in amazement. The monster charged directly toward where Ben was hiding. He tried to scramble away, but his foot slipped on the wet rocks, sending him tumbling into plain view of both the monster and the pirates. "Hey, who's that kid?" shouted the orange-haired woman. "Look out," called the straw hat guy. The monster bore down on Ben, who frantically slapped at the Omnitrix. "Work, you stupid watch. Work." Green light flashed just as the creature reached him. Where Ben had stood, a massive 4-armed red alien now braced against the charging monster. 4 arms. Ben shouted, catching the beast's horns with his upper set of hands. The creature's charge drove him backward, feet digging trenches in the sand, but 4 arms held firm. With a grunt of effort, he lifted the entire creature and flipped it onto its side. The pirates froze in shock. "What the hell?" the swordsman exclaimed, sword still ready. 4 arms wasn't finished. As the creature struggled to right itself, he grabbed one of its middle legs and began to spin, using the monster's own momentum. After several rotations, he released it, sending the beast flying back into the jungle with a tremendous crash. "And stay there." 4 arms shouted after it, dusting his hands off. He turned to find all the pirates staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to excitement to suspicion. Hi." 4 arms offered with an awkward wave of his lower right hand. The straw hat guy was the first to respond, with a massive grin that stretched across his entire face. "That was awesome," he shouted, bouncing in place. "How did you do that? Are you a devil fruit user?" What kind of power is that? Can you join my crew? Luffy, the orange-haired woman scolded. Don't just invite strange red four-armed monsters to join us. But Nami, did you see how strong he is? He threw that Sea King like it was nothing. The Straw Hat guy, apparently named Luffy, was practically vibrating with excitement. For arms raised all four hands in a calming gesture. Hold on, I'm not a monster. Well, I am right now, but I'm actually, the Omnitrix symbol on his shoulder began beeping, cutting him off. Green light flashed again, and Ben returned to his human form, standing awkwardly before the stunned pirates. A human, he finished lamely. The silence that followed was deafening. Ben gave a small wave. Hi. I'm Ben. Ben Tennyson. And I'm, kinda lost. 15 minutes later, Ben sat on the deck of the pirate ship, which he'd learned was called the Thousand Sunny, surrounded by the most unusual crew he'd ever encountered. They'd invited him aboard after his transformation back to human form, though some seemed more eager than others. So you're saying that Watch lets you turn into different creatures? Asked the long-nosed guy, who'd introduced himself as Usopp. He peered suspiciously at the Omnitrix. That's hard to believe. Says the guy traveling with a talking skeleton and a raccoon dog, Ben replied. I'm a reindeer, protested the small furry creature named Chopper. A reindeer who ate the human fruit. Right. Sorry, Ben apologized. Where I come from, we don't have talking reindeer or stretchy people or living skeletons. Yo-ho-ho-ho. We are quite the unusual bunch, aren't we? Laughed Brook, the skeleton musician. Though I'm curious, may I see your underwear? Brook, scolded Nami, hitting him on the skull with her fist. Don't be creepy. She turned back to Ben. So you're from another world? Like, not just another island but a completely different reality? Ben nodded. I was fighting this villain called Professor Kronos. He built a device to travel between dimensions, but something went wrong with it. There was this explosion of energy, and next thing I knew, I woke up on your beach. Robin, the dark-haired woman who'd been quietly observing, spoke up. Fascinating. Multidimensional travel is something I've only read about in ancient texts. Most considered it theoretical. It's definitely real, Ben said. And now I'm stuck here until I can find a way back. The professor got pulled into the vortex too, but I don't know if he ended up here or somewhere else entirely. Luffy, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet while stuffing his face with meat, suddenly pointed at Ben. So you can turn into different monsters with different powers? Show us another one. Luffy, don't be rude, Sanji, the blonde cook, admonished while setting down a plate of food in front of Ben. The kid's been through enough today. Eat up, you look like you need it. Ben's stomach growled in response. He hadn't realized how hungry he was until the aroma of the food hit him. Thanks. And it's okay, I don't mind showing you. But the Omnitrix, this device, needs time to recharge between transformations. How many of these forms do you have? Asked Zoro, the green-haired swordsman who'd been leaning against the mast with his arms crossed. Currently. About 10 that I use regularly. But there are dozens more locked inside the Omnitrix that I haven't even tried yet. Ben took a bite of the food and his eyes widened. Whoa, this is amazing. Sanji grinned proudly. Of course it is. I'm the best chef on the Grand Line. The Grand Line? Ben asked between bites. Is that where we are? The crew exchanged glances. You really aren't from around here, Nami said. The Grand Line is a dangerous sea that circles the globe. It's where all pirates go to seek the One Piece, the greatest treasure in the world. And I'm gonna be king of the pirates when I find it. Luffy declared, pounding his chest. So you guys are actual pirates? Ben asked, looking around at the friendly crew. You don't seem very, pirate-y. Except maybe him. He pointed at Zoro. What's that supposed to mean? Zoro growled. Frankie, the massive cyborg shipwright, laughed. "We're not your typical pirates, little bro. We're the Straw Hat Pirates, and we're super." He struck his signature pose with his arms together. "We don't pillage or hurt innocent people," explained Chopper. "We just want to follow our dreams." Ben was about to respond when a distant boom echoed across the water. Everyone turned to see 3 large ships approaching from around the island's edge. "Marines," Zorro said, immediately alert. "They must have seen the Sea King commotion," Robin observed calmly. "Marines? Like, the military?" Ben asked. "The world government's forces," Nami explained quickly. "And they're not fans of pirates." Through a spyglass, Ben could see the ships clearly now, large vessels with white sails bearing a blue seagull emblem. Uniformed men scurried across their decks, and cannons were being rolled into position. "This isn't good," Usopp moaned. "That's Captain Kobushi's fleet. They've been after us since that thing with the governor's daughter. I told you she followed me onto the ship." Sanji protested. "Doesn't matter now," Zorro said, tying his bandana around his head. "They've spotted us." Another cannon fired, sending a splash of water up near the Sunny's bow. "That was a warning shot," Frankie said. "The next ones won't miss." "Should we fight or run?" Chopper asked, looking to Luffy. The captain adjusted his straw hat, a grin forming on his face. "Let's show them what we've got." Ben stood up, wiping his mouth. "I can help." "You don't have to get involved in our problems," Nami told him. "This isn't your fight." "You guys helped me out," Ben replied, checking the Omnitrix. The face had turned green again. "Besides, I'm pretty good at dealing with authorities who don't understand me." Before anyone could object further, the marine ships opened fire in earnest. Cannonballs arced through the air toward the Thousand Sunny. "Coup de burst ready?" Luffy asked Frankie. "No can do, bro. We used the last of the cola escaping those Sea Kings yesterday. Need at least 3 hours to generate more. Then we fight." Luffy's arm stretched impossibly as he punched toward one of the incoming cannonballs, deflecting it back toward the marine ship. The other Straw Hats sprang into action. Zorro sliced a cannonball clean in half with his swords. Sanji kicked another one away with his flaming leg. Robin crossed her arms, and multiple limbs sprouted from the marine ship's decks, disarming several soldiers. Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through his alien options. "Time to show these guys that messing with us is a bad idea." He slammed his palm down on the device. Green light flashed, and in Ben's place stood a moth-like alien with 4 wings and a black and blue body. "Big chill," the transformed Ben announced, his breath visible even in the warm air. "Whoa! A bug man!" Luffy exclaimed, eyes sparkling with excitement even as he continued deflecting cannonballs. Big Chill spread his wings and took to the air. "I'll handle the cannons." He flew toward the nearest marine ship, turning intangible as bullets passed harmlessly through him. The Marines on deck shouted in alarm as the moth-like alien phased through their ship's hull. Moments later, their cannons froze solid, covered in thick ice that rendered them useless. "What devil fruit is that?" one Marine shouted. "It must be a Logia type. Call for the Vice Admiral." Big Chill emerged from the ship and flew to the next one, repeating the process. He froze not just the cannons but the rudder chains as well, leaving the ship unable to steer. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats were preparing the Sunny to move. Frankie had managed to gather enough cola for a short burst of speed, and Nami was calculating the best escape route. "Ben! We're leaving!" Nami shouted up at him. "Get back here!" Big Chill nodded and headed for the third ship. But as he approached, something unexpected happened. A man in a white coat stepped onto the deck, raised a fist that turned black with some kind of energy, and punched the air in Big Chill's direction. The force hit Big Chill despite his intangibility, sending him tumbling through the air. "What the?" Big Chill righted himself, confused. That shouldn't have hit me. Hockey user. Zoro shouted from the sunny. Be careful. The Marine officer punched the air again, sending another invisible force toward Big Chill. This time he managed to dodge, but just barely. Time for a different approach, Big Chill muttered. He flew high above the ship, then dive-bombed toward it, turning tangible at the last moment to release a massive breath of freezing air that encased the entire deck in ice. The Marine officer slipped and fell, momentarily distracted. Big Chill took the opportunity to freeze the ship's cannons and rudder before flying back to the Thousand Sunny. That should buy us some time, he said as he landed on deck, transforming back to Ben in a flash of green light. That was awesome. Luffy shouted, clapping Ben on the back hard enough to make him stumble. You froze their entire ship. Coup de burst ready. Frankie announced from below deck. It won't be full power, but it'll get us out of here. Everyone hold on. Nami ordered. Ben grabbed onto the nearest railing as Frankie engaged the ship's special propulsion system. The Thousand Sunny's rear opened up, and with a tremendous blast of energy, the ship launched forward, skipping across the water's surface like a stone. The marine ships, with their frozen cannons and rudders, could only watch as the pirate ship escaped over the horizon. As the adrenaline of the escape faded, Ben found himself sitting with the straw hats in the Sunny's kitchen. Sanji had prepared a feast to celebrate their narrow escape, and everyone was enjoying the food and drink. So those Marines, Ben said between bites, they're after you guys because you're pirates. That's part of it, Nami replied. But mostly it's because Luffy keeps picking fights with the world government. They deserved it. Luffy protested through a mouthful of meat. Robin sipped her coffee. Our captain has a habit of challenging authority whenever it abuses its power. I can relate to that, Ben said with a smile. Where I come from, I've had my share of run-ins with people who didn't appreciate my heroics. You consider yourself a hero? Zoro asked, raising an eyebrow. Ben shrugged. Well, yeah. I use the Omnitrix to help people, stop bad guys, save the world. You know, hero stuff. Like a Marine? Chopper asked innocently. No, not like them, Ben said. More like, an independent hero. I don't work for any government. I just do what's right. Luffy grinned. That sounds like us. We're pirates because we want to be free to help who we want to help and go where we want to go. Except you also want to find this One Piece treasure, Ben pointed out. That's my dream. Luffy confirmed. Everyone has their own dream they're chasing. The other crew members nodded in agreement. So what's your dream, Ben? Brook asked. Besides returning to your world? Ben hadn't thought about it that way before. I guess, to master the Omnitrix. To be worthy of the power it gives me. A fine dream, Zoro said with an approving nod. Speaking of your watch, Usopp interjected, you should know that what you experienced with that Marine officer was hockey. It's a power that some people here can use that lets them hit even Devil Fruit users who should be untouchable. Devil Fruit? You've mentioned that before, Ben said. They're special fruits that give powers to whoever eats them, Chopper explained. I ate the human fruit, which is why I can talk and transform. And I ate the gum fruit, which made me a rubber man. Luffy demonstrated by stretching his cheek to an impossible length. Almost everyone with special abilities in our world got them from devil fruits, Nami added. That's why your Omnitrix is so unusual. Robin, who had been quietly contemplating, finally spoke up. Your Professor Kronos, if he ended up in our world too, his dimensional technology combined with devil fruit powers could be extraordinarily dangerous. The thought sobered the group. You're right, Ben agreed. Kronos was already dangerous enough with just his technology. If he figures out how to use these devil fruits or teams up with someone who has them, then we need to find him before he causes trouble. Luffy declared, pounding the table. Ben, join my crew. At least until you can get home. We'll help you find this professor guy. Luffy. Nami scolded. You can't just, actually, Ben interrupted, I'd like that. I don't know anything about this world, and I could use some allies. Plus, you guys seem pretty capable in a fight. It's settled then. Luffy extended his hand to Ben. Welcome to the Straw Hat Pirates. Ben shook the rubber man's hand, feeling strangely at home despite being dimensions away from his actual home. So where do we start looking for Kronos? Frankie asked. Nami spread a map on the table. If he arrived around the same time as Ben, he couldn't have gotten far without a ship. These are the nearest islands. Robin traced a finger along the map. If he's as intelligent as Ben suggests, he'll seek out information first. That means population centers or research facilities. There's a marine research outpost on this island, Nami pointed. And a major port city here. There's also rumors of ancient technology on Ruin Island, Robin added. If I were seeking dimensional travel knowledge, that's where I'd go. Then we have 3 possible locations, Sanji concluded. We should, a tremendous boom interrupted him, shaking the entire ship. Everyone rushed to the deck to see what had happened. In the distance, a massive pillar of light erupted from the ocean, shooting straight into the sky. The beam pulsed with energy, creating ripples in the air like heat waves. What is that? Ben gasped. Robin's eyes widened in recognition. That's coming from Ruin Island. That has to be Kronos, Ben said, the Omnitrix suddenly feeling heavy on his wrist. That energy signature looks just like his dimensional device. Luffy adjusted his straw hat, his expression serious for once. Nami, set course for Ruin Island. Frankie, get the Sunny ready for anything. As the crew rushed to prepare the ship, Ben stared at the pillar of light. Somewhere over there, Kronos was already putting plans in motion. Plans that could threaten not just this world, but Ben's world too. Don't worry, Zoro said, coming to stand beside him. We've faced worse odds. Have you faced someone trying to tear apart the fabric of multiple realities? Ben asked. Zoro grinned fiercely. Not yet. But there's a first time for everything. As the Thousand Sunny changed course toward the light, Ben couldn't help but feel that his adventure in this strange world was just beginning. With the Omnitrix on his wrist and his new pirate allies by his side, he was ready to face whatever Kronos had planned. But even he couldn't have predicted just how complicated things were about to become. The journey to Ruin Island took the better part of a day. During that time, the pillar of light faded, but occasional pulses of energy could still be seen flashing above the island. Ben spent the time getting to know his new allies better and learning more about the world he'd found himself in. Usopp showed him around the Thousand Sunny, explaining the ship's various features with obvious pride. Frankie built her after our first ship, the Going Merry, couldn't sail anymore. The Sunny can do things most ships can only dream of. Like what? Ben asked as they climbed to the crow's nest. Well, you've seen the coup de burst. But there's also the soldier dock system, which houses mini-vehicles, and the Jaen cannon for serious firepower. Ben whistled, impressed. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. A what? Usopp asked, confused. Never mind, Ben said quickly, realizing this world might not have the same entertainment as his. It just sounds really advanced. Frankie's a genius when it comes to machines, Usopp confirmed. Almost as much as I'm a genius at sniping. He puffed out his chest proudly. Later, Ben found himself helping Sanji in the kitchen, peeling potatoes for dinner. So you fight by kicking? Ben asked, watching as the chef expertly chopped vegetables at lightning speed. That's right, Sanji replied. A chef's hands are his life. I'd never risk damaging them in battle. Makes sense, Ben said. Some of my aliens have their own fighting styles too. For Arms uses his strength, XLR-8 uses speed, Diamond Head uses his crystal shards. How many of these aliens do you have? Like I said before, about 10 that I use regularly. But the Omnitrix contains DNA from thousands of species across the universe. Sanji paused his chopping. Across the universe? You mean there are other worlds beyond even your dimension? Ben nodded. Tons of them. I've been to space a bunch of times. Met aliens from all over the galaxy. That's hard to believe, Sanji admitted. But after seeing you transform, I suppose anything's possible. By sunset, the Thousandth Sunny was approaching Ruin Island. From a distance, it looked deceptively peaceful, a small, densely forested island with ancient stone structures visible on its highest point. But as they drew closer, Ben could feel something was off. The air feels charged, Robin observed, standing at the ship's bow with Ben and Luffy. Like before a lightning storm. Ben nodded. It's residual dimensional energy. Kronos has definitely been messing with his device here. I don't see any other ships, Luffy said, shading his eyes as he looked toward the island's small harbor. He might have found local allies with their own transportation, Ben suggested. Or he could have hijacked something. Nami joined them, compass in hand. The needle's going crazy. Whatever's happening on that island is affecting the magnetic field. That can't be good, Ben muttered. As they prepared to drop anchor, Zoro spotted something through his telescope. Movement in the ruins. Looks like people, and they're digging or building something. Let me see, Ben said. Zoro handed him the telescope, and Ben focused on the distant ruins. What he saw made his blood run cold. Kronos was there, his exoskeleton modified with local materials. He appeared to be directing a group of men as they assembled some kind of device around an ancient stone arch. Even from this distance, Ben could recognize components from Kronos' dimensional technology mixed with unfamiliar elements. That's him, Ben confirmed, lowering the telescope. And he's building something big. Then let's go stop him. Luffy punched his palm eagerly. Wait, Robin cautioned. We should observe first. If he's tampering with dimensional forces, rushing in could make things worse. Robin's right, Ben agreed. Plus, I need to know what he's planning before we confront him. They decided on a stealthy approach. The Sunny would anchor in a hidden cove, and a small team would infiltrate the ruins to gather intelligence. Ben, naturally, would be part of the infiltration team, along with Robin, Zoro, and Sanji. Luffy grudgingly agreed to stay with the ship as backup, only after Nami pointed out that his tendency to shout and charge into situations would compromise their stealth. As night fell, Ben activated the Omnitrix. I'll go as Big Chill. I can turn invisible and phase through solid objects, perfect for recon. No, Robin said. If Kronos knows you're aliens, he might have ways to detect them. Better for you to stay human until we need your powers. Ben hadn't considered that. Good point. Human it is. They took a small boat to shore, beaching it in a secluded cove away from the main harbor. The island was eerily quiet as they made their way through the dense jungle toward the ruins. These plants, Robin whispered as they walked, they're not natural to this region. Some of them shouldn't even be able to grow together. What does that mean? Ben asked quietly. It means the dimensional disturbances have been affecting the island's ecosystem, she explained. Reality is becoming unstable here. That wasn't what Ben wanted to hear. We need to hurry. As they approached the ruins, they could hear voices and see lights ahead. The team slowed, moving more carefully now. They crouched behind a fallen column at the edge of a clearing. In the clearing, Kronos and his men had set up a base camp around the ancient stone arch. Floodlights illuminated the area as workers continued assembling the device. Ben could now see more clearly what they were building, a much larger version of Kronos' original dimensional displacement device, integrated with the ancient arch. But what caught Ben's attention was the strange fruit sitting on a pedestal near Kronos. It was unlike any fruit Ben had ever seen, swirling patterns covered its surface, and it seemed to pulse with an inner light. "That's a devil fruit," Sanji whispered. "An unusual one. Why isn't he eating it?" Ben wondered aloud. Robin studied the setup carefully. "He appears to be extracting something from it. Look at those tubes connected to the pedestal." Indeed, thin tubes ran from the pedestal to Kronos' device, carrying a glowing essence from the fruit to the machine. "He's incorporating the fruit's power into his technology," Robin realized. "Ingenious and terrifying." "I need to hear what they're saying," Ben said. He reached for the Omnitrix. "I'll use," a twig snapped behind them. The team whirled around to find themselves surrounded by armed men, Kronos' guards. Well, one of them sneered. "Looks like we have some spies." Before Ben could activate the Omnitrix, something struck him from behind. The world spun, then went black for the second time since arriving in this strange world. Ben awoke to find himself bound to a stone column. His head throbbed, and when he tried to move his wrist, he discovered the Omnitrix was covered by some kind of metal device that prevented him from activating it. "The sleeping hero awakens," came a familiar voice. Ben looked up to see Professor Kronos approaching, his exoskeleton whirring with each step. The scientist looked different than he had in San Francisco. His lab coat was torn and modified with local materials, and his eyes had a manic gleam that hadn't been there before. "Kronos," Ben growled. "What are you doing?" "Surviving. Adapting. Evolving." Kronos gestured to the surrounding ruins. "When I arrived in this primitive world, I thought I'd been sentenced to a technological dead end. But then I discovered the wonders of these devil fruits." "Do you have any idea what they are, Ben?" "Magical fruits that give people powers," Ben replied flatly. "My new friends filled me in." "Magical," Kronos scoffed. "No, not magic. They're biological reality manipulators. Genetic modifiers of unprecedented sophistication. And the one I've acquired," he pointed to the pulsing fruit on the pedestal, "happens to affect the very fabric of spacetime." Ben's blood ran cold. "You're planning to use it to get back home?" "Home?" Kronos laughed. "Think bigger, Ben. Why return to one dimension when I can control them all? This fruit, combined with my technology, will allow me to create stable gateways between infinite realities. Imagine the power." "You're insane," Ben said. "You can barely control your original device. This will tear reality apart." "A small price for godhood," Kronos replied dismissively. He turned to look at something off to Ben's right. "And your new friends will be the first to witness my ascension." Ben turned his head to see Zoro, Robin, and Sanji also bound to columns. Zoro was struggling against his chains, Sanji was trying to position his legs to gain leverage, and Robin appeared unconscious. "Let them go, Kronos," Ben demanded. "This is between you and me." "On the contrary. They're quite important to my plans." Kronos walked over to Robin and lifted her chin. "Especially this one. The only person on this island who can read the ancient inscriptions that complete my calculations." "Don't touch her," Sanji snarled, renewed fury in his struggles. Kronos ignored him, returning to his control panel. "The device will be ready by dawn. Then the transformation begins." He pressed a button, and the tubes connected to the devil fruit pulsed with increased activity. "I'm extracting the essence of the fruit without consuming it, getting the power without the limitations. Quite clever, if I do say so myself." "And what about these guys?" Ben nodded toward a group of rough-looking men guarding the perimeter. "Your new friends. Local pirates. They believe I'm helping them obtain a weapon to challenge the world government." Kronos shrugged. "They're not entirely wrong. They just don't realize the weapon is me." A commotion at the edge of the camp drew their attention. Guards were dragging in new prisoners, Nami, Usopp, and Chopper. "We found them trying to circle around from the west," one guard reported. What happened to staying with the ship? Zoro muttered. Luffy got impatient, Nami whispered as she was chained to a column next to Ben. Ben felt a glimmer of hope. So Luffy, Brook, and Frankie are still free. Nami gave a subtle nod. It doesn't matter, Kronos said, overhearing them. My sensors will detect any approach. By the time your remaining friends arrive, it will be too late. He returned to his work, adjusting settings on his machine. The ancient arch was now fully integrated with his technology, glowing with an unearthly light. Ben looked down at his wrist. The metal device covering the Omnitrix seemed sophisticated, but not unbeatable. If he could just get some leverage. Hey, Nami, he whispered. Can you see this thing on my wrist? Any ideas how to get it off? Nami strained to see. It looks like it has a locking mechanism. If I had my tools. What about you, Usopp? Any gadgets that could help? The long-nosed sniper shook his head sadly. They took all my gear. Ben thought hard. There had to be a way out of this. His eyes scanned the camp, looking for anything that might help. That's when he noticed something odd about the trees at the edge of the clearing. They seemed to be moving. No, not the trees themselves, but something in them. Something green. Zoro had noticed it too. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Kronos. Ben called out, trying to keep the professor's attention away from the trees. So what happens after you become this god of yours? What's the point? Kronos turned, seemingly pleased to have a chance to monologue. The point, Ben, is power beyond imagination. Access to infinite resources, infinite knowledge, infinite possibilities. I'll be able to rewrite reality itself. Sounds boring, Ben replied with a deliberate yawn. I mean, where's the challenge if you can just change the rules whenever you want? Kronos' face darkened. You never did appreciate the bigger picture, did you? Always content to play the small-time hero with your little watch. At least I've got friends, Ben shot back. All you've got are hired thugs who turn on you in a second. Kronos strode toward Ben, anger evident in his movements. You insignificant, gum-gum rocket. The shout came a split second before Luffy burst from the trees, his stretched arms propelling him across the clearing like a missile. He slammed directly into Kronos, sending the scientist flying into his control panel. Chaos erupted in the camp. Brook appeared next, his sword flashing as he cut down guards with lightning speed. Frankie crashed through from another direction, his massive arms sending pirates flying. Super timing, guys. Usopp cheered. Luffy bounded over to the prisoners. Sorry we're late. It took a while to find the right spot to attack from. Just get these chains off. Zoro ordered. Luffy grabbed the chains binding Zoro and strained, his rubber arms straining. The metal groaned, then snapped. He quickly moved to free the others. When he reached Ben, he examined the device on the Omnitrix. What's this thing? Something to keep me from transforming, Ben explained. Can you break it? Luffy gripped the device and pulled. It resisted at first, then cracked under his incredible strength. The device fell away, freeing the Omnitrix. Thanks. Ben immediately activated the watch, scrolling through his alien options. Time to show Kronos what happens when he messes with both our worlds. Across the clearing, Kronos had recovered and was frantically working at a backup control panel. The machine attached to the ancient arch was beginning to glow brighter, and the space within the arch shimmered like a heat mirage. He's activating it early. Robin warned, now conscious and freed from her chains. We need to stop him before the portal stabilizes. Ben slammed his palm down on the Omnitrix. Green light engulfed him, and when it faded, a new alien stood in his place, a green, plant-like humanoid with a flame-patterned head. Swamp fire. Ben shouted, his voice deeper and raspy. The Straw Hat stared in amazement at this new transformation. Another one? Chopper gasped. How many can he turn into? Talk later, Swampfire said. Stop Kronos now. The crew didn't need to be told twice. They charged across the clearing toward Kronos and his machine, battling guards along the way. Zoro, having recovered his swords, cut through enemies with terrifying efficiency. Sanji's flaming kick sent pirates flying. Robin used her devil fruit power to sprout arms across the battlefield, disarming opponents. Nami had reclaimed her weather staff and was generating localized thunderstorms. Swampfire charged directly toward Kronos, shooting streams of fire from his palms to clear a path. Guards who tried to stop him found themselves entangled in rapidly growing vines that erupted from the ground at Swampfire's command. Kronos! Swampfire shouted as he approached. Shut it down. The professor looked up from his control panel, eyes wild. Too late, Ben. The process has begun. Indeed, the arch was now filled with swirling energy, and through it, Ben could see glimpses of other realities, including what looked like a street in San Francisco. My home, Swampfire muttered, momentarily distracted. That moment of distraction was all Kronos needed. He pressed a final button, and the machine surged with power. The devil fruit on the pedestal seemed to collapse in on itself, its essence completely drained into the device. The ground began to shake. The air around the arch rippled and tore like fabric. Through the growing portal, more worlds became visible, countless realities stacked upon each other. Yes. Kronos exulted. It's working. The multiverse opens before me. Swampfire turned to the Straw Hats, who had fought their way to the machine. We need to destroy that thing. On it. Frankie aimed his arm, which opened to reveal a cannon. Weapons left. The blast hit the control panel, sending sparks flying. But instead of shutting down, the machine seemed to increase in power. Fools! Kronos laughed. You've only accelerated the process. The portal expanded, stretching beyond the confines of the arch. Reality itself seemed to bend around it, trees and rocks distorting as if viewed through warped glass. This isn't good, Swampfire said, backing away. If that portal keeps growing, it could tear this whole dimension apart. Robin examined the machine quickly. The power source, it's the extracted devil fruit essence in those containers. She pointed to glowing canisters attached to the base of the arch. Luffy didn't hesitate. I'll destroy them. He wound up his arm for a powerful punch. No. Robin stopped him. A direct impact might cause an explosion that would make things worse. We need to disrupt the flow gradually. Swampfire thought quickly. I've got an idea. Frankie, can you modify the machine to reverse the flow? The cyborg shipwright examined the controls. Maybe, but I'd need time. And we're all out of that, Nami pointed out as the portal continued to grow. Kronos stood before the portal, arms outstretched as if embracing it. Come to me, power of the multiverse. Tendrils of energy began to flow from the portal toward him, wrapping around his exoskeleton. His body lifted off the ground, suspended in the air by dimensional forces. He's absorbing the power. Swampfire realized. We have to stop him now. The Omnitrix symbol on Swampfire's chest suddenly began to beep rapidly. A voice emerged from it, but not the usual timeout warning. Dimensional anomaly detected. Emergency protocol activated. What? Swampfire looked down in surprise. The Omnitrix has never done that before. A green scanning beam shot out from the Omnitrix, analyzing the portal and Kronos. The scan completed, and the voice spoke again. Multiversal breach detected. Initiating containment protocol. Swampfire felt the Omnitrix taking control, cycling through transformations automatically. The green light enveloped him again, but this time he had no input on what he would become. When the light faded, Ben had transformed into an alien he'd never used before, a humanoid figure with a body that seemed made of living cosmic energy, star-like particles swirling within a contained field. "Whoa," the new alien said, his voice resonating with a strange echo. "What am I?" The Omnitrix must have unlocked a new form to deal with the dimensional crisis, Robin theorized, staring in awe. The new alien examined his hands, which glowed with cosmic energy. "I think you're right. Let's call this one Alien X." No, that didn't sound right. The name came to Ben immediately, as if the Omnitrix was feeding it directly to his consciousness. "Celestialsapian," he corrected. "I'm a Celestialsapian." Knowledge flooded Ben's mind, understanding of dimensional forces, the multiverse, reality itself. This alien form existed partially outside normal spacetime, capable of manipulating the very fabric of reality. "Everyone, get back," Ben ordered, his voice carrying unusual authority. The Straw Hats retreated as Ben approached the expanding portal and Kronos, who was still absorbing energy from it. "What is this?" Kronos demanded, seeing Ben's new form. "Another transformation won't save you now, Ben. I'm becoming one with the multiverse." "No, you're tearing it apart," Ben replied calmly. He raised his hands, and cosmic energy flowed from them, surrounding the portal. Kronos laughed. "You think you can contain this power?" "I've calculated every variable, considered every, except the Omnitrix," Ben interrupted. "It's not just a transformation device. It's the most sophisticated piece of technology in my universe, designed by the most intelligent being in 5 galaxies. And right now, it's telling me exactly how to stop you." Ben focused his Celestialsapian powers, creating a containment field around the portal. The wild energy began to stabilize, the violent fluctuations slowing. "No." Kronos tried to pull more power from the portal, but Ben's containment field was cutting him off. "You can't do this. I was so close." "It's over, Kronos." Ben began compressing the portal, forcing it back into the arch. "Your experiment ends here." With a gesture, Ben directed a stream of cosmic energy at Kronos, separating him from the dimensional power he'd absorbed. The scientist fell to the ground, his exoskeleton sparking and failing. "The device," Ben said to Frankie. "Destroy it now, while I'm containing the portal." Frankie nodded and aimed both arms at the machine. Radical beam. A powerful energy blast shot from his palms, striking the machine at its core. The devil fruit containers shattered, releasing their energy in a controlled manner thanks to Ben's containment field. The portal began to collapse in on itself, shrinking back to the size of the arch, then smaller still. Reality around it started to normalize, the distortions fading. As the last of the portal energy dissipated, Ben felt the Omnitrix timing out. Green light flashed, and he returned to human form, dropping to his knees in exhaustion. Luffy was at his side instantly. "Ben. You okay?" Ben nodded weakly. "Yeah. That new alien form was intense. Like I could feel the whole multiverse at once." Across the clearing, Zoro and Sanji had apprehended Kronos, who knelt defeated, his exoskeleton in ruins around him. "What do we do with him?" Sanji asked, nudging Kronos with his foot. "We take him with us," Luffy decided. "He's too dangerous to leave for the Marines or other pirates to find." Robin examined the remains of the machine and the ancient arch. "The dimensional gateway is closed, but not destroyed. With the right knowledge, it could be reopened." Ben stood up shakily, leaning on Luffy for support. "Then I should destroy it completely." "Wait," Robin said. "This might be your only way home." Ben looked at the arch thoughtfully. "You're right. But we can't risk Kronos or someone else using it again." Frankie stepped forward. "I think I can modify what's left to create a one-time portal. Enough to get you home, then it would burn itself out completely." "You could do that?" Ben asked hopefully. Frankie grinned. "It'll be super complicated, but yeah, I think so." Give me a day or two to work on it. Then it's decided, Luffy announced. We take Kronos prisoner, Frankie fixes the portal thing to send Ben home, and then we celebrate with a feast. The Straw Hats cheered in agreement. Even in the face of near-dimensional catastrophe, their spirits remained unshakable. As dawn broke over the island, Ben looked at his new friends with mixed emotions. He was glad to have a way home, but in the short time he'd known them, the Straw Hat Pirates had made quite an impression on him. You know, he said as they headed back to the Thousand Sunny, Kronos bound and being dragged by Zoro, I still have some time before I go home. Maybe we could have one more adventure together. Luffy's face lit up with his characteristic grin. One more. We're just getting started. And as the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the strange island, Ben realized that sometimes being lost wasn't such a bad thing after all, especially when you found friends like these along the way. Chapter 2, New Allies, New Enemies. Morning sunlight streamed through the porthole, hitting Ben directly in the face. He groaned and rolled over, burying his head under a pillow. After yesterday's dimensional disaster and the late-night celebration that followed, he'd crashed in the boys' quarters of the Thousand Sunny, completely exhausted. Wake up, watch guy. You're missing breakfast. Luffy's voice penetrated Ben's sleepy haze, followed by the rubber man shaking his shoulder with annoying persistence. 5 more minutes, Grandpa, Ben mumbled automatically. I'm not your grandpa, I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Luffy laughed, pulling the blanket off entirely. Come on. Sanji made meat pancakes. Ben sat up, rubbing his eyes. Meat, pancakes. That's actually a thing. Everything's better with meat. Luffy grabbed Ben's arm and practically dragged him out of bed. Hurry up before I eat your share. Still half asleep, Ben followed Luffy to the kitchen where most of the crew had already gathered. The smell of breakfast hit him like a wave, instantly waking him up. Sanji moved efficiently around the kitchen, flipping pancakes while keeping one eye on Luffy to prevent pre-serving theft. Morning, Ben, Nami greeted from behind a newspaper. Sleep well. Like a rock, Ben admitted, taking a seat between Chopper and Usopp. I don't think I've ever been that tired. That new alien form took a lot out of me. I'm not surprised, Robin said, sipping her coffee. What you did was essentially manipulate the fabric of reality itself. The human body isn't designed to channel that kind of power. Sanji placed a stack of pancakes in front of Ben. True to Luffy's description, they had bits of seasoned meat cooked right into them. Eat up, the chef said. You'll need your strength. We've got a busy day ahead. Ben took a bite and his eyes widened. These are amazing. We definitely don't have these where I come from. Of course they're amazing. I made them, Sanji replied with casual confidence. So what's the plan? Ben asked between bites, trying to eat quickly before Luffy's wandering rubber hands stole from his plate. Nami spread a map on the table, pushing breakfast plates aside despite protests. We're here, at Ruin Island. Frankie says he needs at least 2 days to modify the dimensional portal to get you home safely. I'd prefer 3, Frankie added as he entered the kitchen. This isn't exactly standard shipwright work. One mistake and we could send you to the wrong dimension or tear you apart at the molecular level. Take your time, Ben said quickly. I'm in no rush to be molecularly torn apart. Robin pointed to a spot on the map. Meanwhile, we need to figure out what Kronos was planning. The machine was destroyed, but his research might still exist somewhere. Already on it, Usopp said proudly. I searched his stuff while he was passed out in the brig. Found these. He pulled out several crumpled papers with complex diagrams. Robin examined them with interest. These appear to be calculations for combining devil fruit powers with his dimensional technology. But they reference other documents, a complete set of research notes that must be elsewhere. Did anyone ask Kronos? Ben suggested. Zoro snorted from his position leaning against the wall. He's not exactly in a sharing mood. Just keeps muttering about, so close, and godhood denied. Typical villain stuff, Ben said with a dismissive wave. But we should figure out if he was working with anyone else. He mentioned local pirates, but it seemed like he had bigger connections. According to these notes, Robin continued, he was in contact with someone at a marine research facility. There are references to exchanging information about devil fruit extraction methods. Marines? Luffy perked up. Let's go beat them up. Nami sighed. We can't just charge into a marine base without a plan, Luffy. Why not? Always worked before, Luffy replied through a mouthful of stolen pancake. Because this time we need information, not just a fight, Nami explained patiently. We need to be strategic. Ben finished his breakfast, thinking over the situation. What if we infiltrate the base? Just a small team, in and out before they know we're there. I like how this kid thinks, Zoro said with a grin. It could work, Robin agreed. If we identify which facility it is, I could forge documentation to get us inside. Nami studied the map again. Based on these coordinates in Kronos' notes, it must be the G9 research station. It's relatively small, used primarily for scientific studies rather than military operations. Perfect, Ben said, feeling a plan coming together. Robin and I could go in posing as researchers. With the Omnitrix, I can transform into whatever we need to get past security. I should go too, Nami added. I'm good at stealing things without being noticed. And you'll need muscle if things go wrong, Sanji volunteered immediately. Hold on, Frankie interrupted. What about Kronos? We can't leave him unguarded on the ship. I'll stay, Zoro said. Anyone tries anything, they'll regret it. Me too, Chopper added. I want to study his technology more. It might help us understand what he was trying to do. Luffy pouted. What about me? Everyone exchanged glances. Sending Luffy on a stealth mission was like bringing a bull to a china shop. Captain, Nami said diplomatically, we need you to guard the ship with Zoro. This is our only way to get Ben home, remember? Luffy considered this, then nodded seriously. Right. I'll protect the ship and Kronos and the portal thingy. Then it's settled, Ben said, standing up with renewed energy. Robin, Nami, Sanji, and I will infiltrate the marine research station. How soon can we be ready? Robin stood as well. Give me an hour to prepare the necessary documents. We'll need to acquire appropriate clothing, too. Leave the disguises to me, Nami said with a wink. I know just what we'll need. As the crew dispersed to prepare for the mission, Ben stepped out onto the deck. The morning air was fresh and salty, the sun bright overhead. Despite being stranded in another dimension, Ben felt strangely energized. There was something about the straw hats that made every challenge feel like an adventure rather than a crisis. Leaning against the railing, Ben stared out at the ocean. This world was so different from his own, yet there was something familiar about it too, the constant fight between those with power and those seeking freedom. Penny for your thoughts. Robin's voice broke his reverie as she joined him at the railing. Just thinking about how weird it is being here, Ben admitted. Yesterday I was fighting Kronos in San Francisco, and now I'm planning to infiltrate a military base with a crew of pirates from another dimension. Robin smiled. Life has a way of taking unexpected turns. Though I imagine yours takes more than most, given your abilities. The Omnitrix does tend to complicate things, Ben agreed, glancing at the device on his wrist. But it's led me to some amazing experiences, and people. Your family must be worried about you. Ben nodded soberly. My cousin Gwen and Grandpa Max, they're probably turning the world upside down looking for me. They've seen me disappear before, but never like this. We'll get you back to them, Robin assured him. Though I have to admit, the crew has taken a liking to you already. Especially Luffy. Really? How can you tell? Robin chuckled. He offered you food from his own plate last night. For Luffy, that's practically a blood oath of brotherhood. Ben laughed, remembering how Luffy had enthusiastically pushed a piece of meat onto his plate during the celebration, then immediately looked like he regretted it before bravely standing by his decision. I like you guys too, Ben admitted. You remind me of my team back home. Different abilities, different personalities, but somehow it all works together. That's Luffy's special talent, Robin said softly. Finding people who fit together, even when they don't seem to at first. Their conversation was interrupted by Nami calling from the upper deck. Disguises are ready. Come try yours on. An hour later, Ben stared at his reflection in disbelief. He wore a crisp white lab coat over a Marine Science Division uniform, complete with glasses and a fake ID badge that Robin had somehow created that morning. I look like a mini professor, he complained, adjusting the collar that felt too tight around his neck. That's the idea, Nami replied, straightening her own uniform. She'd styled her hair into a severe bun and added glasses as well. You're supposed to be a prodigy researcher under my supervision. Sanji emerged from the men's quarters in a Marine officer's uniform, his hair slicked back and his visible eye looking unusually serious. How do I look, Nami Swan? Robin Chuan. Very official, Robin approved, herself dressed in an intelligence officer's uniform with her hair tied back. Remember, I'll be doing most of the talking. Ben, you're my assistant. Nami, you're a visiting researcher from headquarters. Sanji, you're our security escort. What about my accent? Sanji asked. I'm not exactly marine material. Just don't speak unless necessary, Robin advised. Let your uniform do the talking. Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through his options. Maybe I should go as gray matter instead. He looks more like a scientist. No, Robin said firmly. We don't know if they have ways to detect unusual abilities. Better to stay human unless absolutely necessary. Ben reluctantly agreed, powering down the watch. So how are we getting to this research station? We've borrowed a boat, Nami explained, leading them to the lower deck where a small marine vessel was tied alongside the Sunny. Frankie and Usopp liberated it from the harbor this morning. Stole it, you mean, Ben translated with a smirk. Borrowed without permission, Nami corrected primly. We're pirates, remember? The four of them boarded the small vessel, with Sanji taking the helm. As they pulled away from the Thousand Sunny, Ben caught sight of Luffy waving enthusiastically from the figurehead. Good luck. Bring back cool science stuff, the rubber captain shouted. And meat. Sanji called back, making Luffy's grin widen. As they set course for the Marine Research Station, Ben felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. This would be his first real mission with his new allies, and he was determined to prove himself useful even without transforming. The journey took about 3 hours, during which Robin briefed them thoroughly on their cover stories and what to expect at the facility. G9 is primarily focused on devil fruit research, she explained. They study the effects, limitations, and potential applications of various fruits. If Kronos was collaborating with someone there, it was likely related to his interest in extracting and harnessing devil fruit powers. How would that even work? Ben wondered. From what you've told me, devil fruits permanently change whoever eats them. Exactly, Robin nodded. Which makes the idea of extracting that power separately quite revolutionary, and dangerous. If someone found a way to harness devil fruit abilities without the usual limitations, it could upset the entire power balance of our world. Not to mention what Kronos might do with it in combination with his dimensional technology, Ben added grimly. The Marine Research Station came into view as they rounded a small island. Unlike the imposing military bases Ben had expected, G9 looked almost civilian, a cluster of white buildings perched on a rocky outcropping, connected to a small dock. The only obvious military presence was a watchtower and a few uniformed guards patrolling the perimeter. Remember, Robin said as Sanji guided their boat toward the dock, we're here for information only. No unnecessary risks. Got it, Ben agreed. In and out, quick and quiet. A guard approached as they docked. Robin stepped forward, documents in hand. Lieutenant Commander Nico, she introduced herself smoothly, showing the forged papers. We're from headquarters, here for the quarterly review of Project Essence. The guard examined the documents, then nodded. We weren't expecting inspectors until next week. That's the point of surprise inspections, Robin replied coolly. They're supposed to be a surprise. The guard straightened. Of course, ma'am. I'll escort you to the main facility. As they followed the guard up a winding path to the main building, Ben couldn't help but be impressed by Robin's performance. She carried herself with perfect military bearing, her voice holding just the right note of authority. Inside, the facility was brightly lit and sterile, with researchers in lab coats moving purposefully between rooms. Nobody gave their group a second glance, assuming the uniforms meant they belonged. Project Essence is housed in the East Wing, their escort explained, leading them down a corridor. Dr. Vegapunk's team has made significant progress in recent months. Vegapunk? Ben whispered to Nami. The government's top scientist, she whispered back. If he's involved, this is bigger than we thought. The guard stopped at a security checkpoint. I'll need to see all your clearances. Robin handed over their forged documents again. The guard scrutinized them more carefully this time, then frowned. These authorizations are for the general facility. Project Essence requires special clearance from Admiral Kizaru himself. Robin didn't miss a beat. Check again. The Admiral's authorization is on page 3, paragraph 2. The guard flipped to the indicated page, and his eyes widened. I apologize, Lieutenant Commander. You're right. Please proceed. As they passed through the checkpoint, Ben caught a glimpse of the page. There was no authorization there, Robin had simply bluffed, and the guard had been too intimidated to admit he couldn't see it. Nice trick, Ben murmured once they were out of earshot. People often see what they expect to see, Robin replied with a small smile. The east wing of the facility housed larger laboratories with more sophisticated equipment. Through glass windows, Ben could see scientists working with strange fruits and glowing substances. In one room, a devil fruit was suspended in a liquid-filled chamber, electrodes attached to its surface. They're studying the fruits themselves, not just the powers they grant, Robin observed. Look, Nami pointed discreetly to a diagram on a wall. It showed a process for extracting something called essence from a devil fruit. That looks like what Kronos was trying to do. We need to find the research data, Ben said. Where would they keep the most sensitive information? Sanji, who had been quiet throughout, gestured subtly down another corridor. Security's tighter that way. More guards, restricted access. Then that's where we need to go, Robin decided. Nami, create a distraction. We'll slip past while everyone's attention is elsewhere. Nami nodded and casually dropped back, disappearing into a side room. Moments later, alarms began blaring from the opposite direction. Fire in the West Wing, someone shouted. Guards and researchers rushed toward the source of the alarm, leaving their corridor momentarily clear. Now, Robin said, and the three of them hurried down the restricted hallway. They reached a heavy door marked, Project Essence, authorized personnel only. Locked, Sanji confirmed after trying the handle. Keycard access. Ben examined the lock. I could transform into gray matter and bypass it. Wait, Robin said, producing a keycard from her pocket. I picked this up while our escort wasn't looking. The card worked, the door sliding open with a soft hiss. Inside was a smaller laboratory, more specialized than the others they'd passed. At its center sat a machine eerily similar to what Kronos had been building, though less advanced. This looks familiar, Ben said, approaching the device cautiously. It's like a prototype of Kronos's extractor. Robin moved to a computer terminal. Let's see what they're working on. While she worked, Ben examined the machine more closely. It consisted of a containment chamber for a devil fruit, connected to tubes and filters that presumably separated the essence from the physical fruit. They haven't perfected it yet, he noted, seeing scorch marks and damage to parts of the equipment. Looks like it's still unstable. Found something, Robin announced. Project Essence is exactly what we feared, an attempt to extract devil fruit powers in pure form, allowing them to be transferred, combined, or even temporarily granted to multiple users. That's impossible, Sanji said, looking over her shoulder. Devil fruits are one per person, always have been. Science advances, Robin replied grimly. According to these logs, they've had partial success. They can extract the essence, but it remains unstable and degrades quickly outside a living host or the fruit itself. Which is where Kronos came in, Ben realized. His dimensional technology could stabilize the essence by placing it partially outside normal spacetime. Exactly, Robin continued reading. There are references to an outside consultant who provided breakthrough insights on stabilization methods. That must be Kronos. Nami slipped into the room, slightly out of breath. The distraction won't hold them long. We need to hurry. Download everything, Ben urged Robin. We need to understand exactly what they were planning. Robin inserted a small device into the computer, quickly copying files. There's something else here. References to ancient ruins on an island called Ferros. Apparently, they contain knowledge about devil fruit origins that's critical to the extraction process. Kronos mentioned ruins when we were capturing him, Ben recalled. Said something about ancient knowledge being the key. Got everything, Robin said, removing her device. Let's go. Before the door slid open, and they all froze. A tall man in a lab coat entered, his face obscured by a surgical mask and goggles. He stopped short at the sight of them. Who authorized this access? He demanded. Robin stepped forward, resuming her commanding persona. Lieutenant Commander Nico, Special Inspection from Headquarters. The scientist pulled down his mask, revealing a face that was partly mechanical, with a metal plate covering one cheek and eye. Interesting. Because I am Dr. Cypher, head of Project Essence, and I authorized no inspection today. Ben tensed, feeling the situation deteriorating rapidly. The scientist's gaze fell on him, then narrowed. You, Dr. Cypher said slowly. You matched the description our consultant provided. The boy with the transformation device. Ben's hand moved instinctively to the Omnitrix. I don't know what you're talking about. Professor Kronos was quite detailed in his description, Cypher continued, reaching for an alarm button on the wall. He said you would come. Sanji moved faster than Ben could track, his leg sweeping out to knock the scientist's hand away from the alarm. Sorry, we don't have time for proper introductions. Cypher surprisingly blocked the kick with his arm, which made a metallic clang on impact. Cybernetic enhancements, he explained with a cold smile. One of my own inventions. Guys, we need to go, Nami urged, backing toward the door. Now. Ben activated the Omnitrix, quickly selecting an alien. Green light flashed as he transformed into a sleek, black creature with wheels for feet and a streamlined body. XLR-8. Ben announced. He moved in a blur, circling Cypher at high speed, creating a disorienting vortex around the scientist. Fascinating, Cypher remarked, seemingly unperturbed. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. With a press of a button, an electromagnetic pulse shot outward. Ben stumbled, his speed faltering as the pulse temporarily interfered with his alien form's neurology. What the? Kronos shared much about your abilities, Cypher explained. Including potential vulnerabilities. Robin crossed her arms in her distinctive pose. Cease fleur. 6 arms sprouted from Cypher's body, restraining his movements. Go. I'll hold him. Sanji kicked open the door to reveal 3 guards rushing down the hallway. We've got company. XLR-8 recovered from the pulse effect. This way. He grabbed Nami and Sanji, speeding them past the guards in a blur. Robin released her hold on Cypher and ran after them. Alarms blared throughout the facility as they raced toward the exit. Marines poured into the corridors, cutting off their escape routes. The main exit is blocked, Nami shouted as they skidded to a halt at an intersection. Then we make a new one, XLR-8 decided. He changed direction, heading toward an exterior wall. Everyone hold tight. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest began to flash. Oh no, not now. In a flash of green light, Ben returned to human form, momentum carrying him forward until he crashed into Sanji's back. Perfect timing, Sanji muttered sarcastically, steadying Ben. Sorry. Ben quickly reactivated the Omnitrix, scrolling for a new alien. Let's try someone with more punch. He slammed down on the dial. Green light flashed again, and in Ben's place stood a massive, dinosaur-like alien with tough red skin and enormous strength. Humongosaur. Ben roared. Without hesitation, he charged at the exterior wall, shoulder first. The wall crumbled under his impact, revealing the open air and a steep drop to the water below. Jump! Robin urged, pulling Nami toward the opening. Guards appeared behind them, opening fire. Sanji spun, deflecting bullets with rapid kicks. Go! I'll cover you. Robin and Nami leapt through the hole. Humongosaur reached for Sanji, grabbing him despite his protests. Put me down. I can handle them. Sanji yelled. We're leaving together, Humongosaur replied firmly, backing toward the opening. A bullet bounced off his tough hide as he turned and leapt out of the building, Sanji tucked under one arm. They plummeted toward the water below. Humongosaur twisted in midair, positioning himself to take the impact first. They hit the water with a tremendous splash, the fall cushioned by his dense body. Under the surface, Ben transformed again, this time into a fish-like alien with powerful swimming abilities. Rip jaws. Ben's gravelly voice bubbled underwater. He grabbed Sanji, who was struggling due to the sudden immersion, and swam toward Robin and Nami who were treading water nearby. Head for the boat. Ripjaws directed, pulling Sanji along. The chef sputtered but began swimming once he oriented himself. Marines appeared at the broken wall above, firing into the water around them. Ripjaws dove deeper, the others following his lead to avoid the bullets that lost momentum quickly underwater. They reached their stolen boat, climbing aboard hastily. Sanji immediately took the helm while Robin and Nami untied the moorings. Ripjaws transformed back to Ben as he collapsed on the deck, exhausted from the multiple rapid transformations. Go, go, go. Nami urged as Marines began pouring out of the facility toward the dock. The boat's engine roared to life, and they shot away from the research station. Behind them, alarm sirens continued to wail, and a larger marine vessel began to pull away from another dock. They're pursuing, Robin observed calmly, wringing water from her hair. Can we outrun them? Ben asked, catching his breath. Sanji grimaced. Not in this tub. That's a combat cruiser behind us. Ben checked the Omnitrix, it was in the red, recharging after his multiple transformations. Just great. Now what? Nami studied the sea and sky with an expert's eye. There's a storm system about half a mile east. If we can reach it, I might be able to use it to lose them. East it is, Sanji agreed, adjusting their course. As they raced toward the darkening clouds on the horizon, Ben helped Robin spread out the data they'd stolen. Despite being somewhat damp, the storage device had protected the information. Kronos was definitely working with them, Robin confirmed, scanning through files. He provided the theoretical framework for dimensional stabilization of devil fruit essence. And in return? Ben asked. Access to their extraction technology and historical records about devil fruits. It seems he was particularly interested in something called the Void Century. What's that? 100-year period in our world's history that the world government has forbidden anyone to study, Robin explained, her expression darkening. All records from that time were destroyed, save for a few scattered clues on special stones called poneglyphs. Why would Kronos care about ancient history? Ben wondered. Because, Robin said, pointing to a passage in the files, according to this, devil fruits first appeared during the Void Century. Their origin might be connected to whatever the government is trying to hide. The boat suddenly lurched as they hit the edge of the storm. Rain began pelting the deck, and wind whipped around them. Nami took over from Sanji, her navigation skills better suited to the treacherous conditions. Can you use this weather? Robin asked her. Nami nodded, pulling out her Climatax staff. Watch and learn. She began manipulating the weather around them, amplifying the natural storm with her own abilities. Behind them, the marine vessel entered the storm zone, immediately struggling with the massive waves Nami was generating. Lightning crackled overhead, striking the water dangerously close to the pursuit ship. That should slow them down, Nami said with satisfaction. Now we need to change direction without them noticing. Ben watched in amazement as she continued working with her staff, creating a localized fog bank that enveloped their boat. Under this cover, she directed Sanji to make a sharp turn south, while the storm continued to drive east. The Marines will follow the storm, she explained. By the time they realize we're not in it anymore, we'll be long gone. That's incredible, Ben said, genuinely impressed. You control weather? Just small weather systems, Nami replied modestly. It's nothing compared to your transformations. Are you kidding? That was perfect strategy. Saved us without anyone getting hurt. Nami smiled at the compliment. Well, we still need to get this information back to the others. According to these coordinates, Ferros Island is 2 days' journey from here. Ferros, the ruins mentioned in the files? Ben asked. Robin nodded. If Kronos was interested in them, we should be too. They might contain crucial information about devil fruits that could help us understand his plans. But first, we need to regroup with the Sunny, Sanji said. Share what we've learned and plan our next move. Ben agreed, settling back as the small boat cut through calmer waters, the storm and Marines now far behind them. His mind raced with all they'd discovered. Kronos had been busy in this world, making dangerous allies and pursuing knowledge that could threaten multiple dimensions. As the adrenaline of their escape faded, Ben felt a growing determination. Whatever Kronos was planning, he would stop it, with the help of his new pirate friends. The Thousand Sunny came into view just as the sun was setting, its lion figurehead catching the golden light. Luffy spotted them approaching and waved enthusiastically from his perch. They're back, his voice carried across the water. Did you bring meat? Is that all he thinks about? Ben asked with a laugh. Pretty much, Sanji confirmed, guiding their boat alongside the Sunny. They climbed aboard to find the entire crew waiting, eager for news. While they changed out of their wet marine disguises, Robin briefed everyone on what they'd discovered. Devil fruit essence extraction. Frankie whistled. That's some seriously dangerous science. And these ruins on Ferros Island? Zoro asked. You think that's where Kronos was headed next? It's likely, Robin replied. The files suggest the ruins contain information about the origin of devil fruits, possibly dating back to the Void Century. How's our prisoner? Nami asked, rejoining them in dry clothes. Uncooperative, Chopper reported. But I did manage to learn more about his exoskeleton. It's powered by the same energy source as his dimensional device. Ben, now comfortable in his regular clothes, activated the Omnitrix and scrolled through his aliens thoughtfully. If Kronos was planning to go to these ruins, maybe we should talk to him again. I might have an idea for getting him to cooperate. The crew followed Ben down to the brig, where Kronos sat in a cell, his damaged exoskeleton removed and placed in a corner. Without it, he looked much less imposing, just a middle-aged scientist with unkempt hair and a bitter expression. "Come to gloat, Ben?" Kronos asked without looking up. "Enjoying your pirate adventure while my life's work lies in ruins?" "Actually," Ben replied, "I came to offer you a deal." This got Kronos' attention. He looked up, suspicion in his eyes. "What kind of deal?" "We know about Ferros Island and the ruins there. We know you were working with the Marines on devil fruit essence extraction. What we don't know is why the Void Century and the origin of devil fruits matters to you." Kronos laughed humorlessly. "You wouldn't understand even if I explained it." Ben activated the Omnitrix, transforming in a flash of green light. In his place stood a small, gray alien with a bulbous head and large eyes. "Try me," Gray Matter said, his high-pitched voice carrying surprising authority. "My Galvan form has an intelligence level far beyond human capacity. I understand complex dimensional physics better than most beings in the universe." Kronos studied Gray Matter with grudging respect. "The Galvan, yes, I've read about them in your files." "Fine. If you want to know, I'll tell you." Gray Matter folded his arms, waiting. "Devil fruits aren't natural to this world," Kronos began. "According to the fragments of research I found, they appeared suddenly during what they call the Void Century. Their properties defy conventional physics, granting powers that alter reality itself." "You think they're extraterrestrial," Gray Matter surmised. "Or extradimensional." "Precisely. The similarities between devil fruit energy signatures and dimensional breach radiation are too similar to be coincidental. My theory is that during the Void Century, someone in this world made contact with another dimension, intentionally or accidentally. And the fruits are the result," Robin concluded. "A merger of energies from different realities." "Yes. The world government erased this history because it revealed a truth they couldn't control, that their world is just one of many, and the barriers between them are more permeable than they realized." Gray Matter processed this information quickly. "So you wanted to go to Ferros Island because the ruins there supposedly contain the original method used to create devil fruits," Kronos explained. "If I could understand that process, I could perfect my dimensional technology. Create stable passages between worlds. Or tear them all apart," Gray Matter countered. "The energies you're playing with are incredibly dangerous." Kronos leaned forward. "That's where you're wrong, Ben. I'm not trying to destroy dimensions, I'm trying to unite them. Imagine free travel between worlds, exchange of knowledge and resources across realities." "With you as the gatekeeper," Zorro interjected skeptically. "Someone has to control the process," Kronos argued. "Better me than governments or corporations." Gray Matter transformed back to Ben in a flash of green light. "Even if what you're saying is true, your methods are too risky. You nearly caused a dimensional collapse on Ruin Island." "A miscalculation," Kronos dismissed. "One I wouldn't repeat with the knowledge from Ferros Island." Ben exchanged glances with Robin, who gave a subtle nod. They had what they needed, confirmation of Kronos' plans and the importance of Ferros Island. "Thanks for the information," Ben said, turning to leave. "It's been enlightening." "Wait." Kronos called after them. "Don't you see? This affects you too, Ben. With the right application of this technology, you could go home anytime you wanted. Travel between dimensions at will." Ben paused at the door. "Maybe. But not at the risk of destroying multiple realities." He left, the crew following behind him. Back on deck, they gathered to discuss what they'd learned. "So," Luffy summarized in his straightforward way, "the devil fruits came from another dimension, and Kronos wants to use old ruins to make a door between worlds." "Basically, yes," Ben confirmed, impressed at how quickly Luffy had grasped the concept. "And we need to reach Ferros Island before anyone else who might have the same idea. Like this Dr. Cypher from the research facility," Sanji added. "He seemed particularly interested in you, Ben." We should assume the Marines are now aware of both Kronos' capture and our interest in Ferros Island, Robin said. They'll likely send forces there as well. Nami calculated on her map. With favorable winds, we could reach Ferros in 2 days. Then we set sail immediately, Luffy decided. Nami, plot the course. Frankie, prepare the crew to burst in case we need a quick escape. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Ben found himself standing beside Luffy at the bow. The captain's usually carefree expression had been replaced by determined focus. You know, Ben said, for someone who acts so carefree most of the time, you really step up when it counts. Luffy grinned. Being serious all the time is boring. But when my friends are in danger or there's an adventure waiting, that's different. I get that. Back home, my cousin Gwen is always saying I don't take things seriously enough. Sounds like Nami, Luffy laughed. Always worried about details and planning and stuff. He stretched his arms up, grabbing the top of the mast and catapulting himself up to the crow's nest. Come on. Best view on the ship up here. Ben stared up at him. I can't stretch like you. Oh yeah. Luffy's head popped over the edge, grinning down. Use one of your aliens. Ben shook his head with a smile but activated the Omnitrix anyway. In a flash of green light, he transformed into a monkey-like alien with 4 arms and a tail. Spider Monkey, he announced, then scurried up the mast with agile movements, joining Luffy in the crow's nest. From this height, the view was indeed spectacular. The sun had set, and stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. The ocean stretched endlessly in all directions, mysterious and inviting. Your world is beautiful, Spider Monkey commented. There's lots to see, Luffy agreed enthusiastically. Islands that float in the sky, underwater kingdoms, islands made of candy. Candy? Spider Monkey's eyes widened. Now that I'd like to see. Maybe after we stop Kronos, Luffy suggested. We could go on adventures. You could be an honorary Straw Hat. The offer touched Ben deeply. Despite having just met these people days ago, he already felt a connection with them. They accepted him without question, valued his abilities, and treated him like one of their own. I'd like that, Spider Monkey admitted. But eventually I'll need to go home. My family, my friends, they need me. Luffy nodded understanding. That's what being a pirate is about, freedom to choose your own path. If your path leads home, that's where you should go. Land ho! Usopp's voice called from the front of the ship, interrupting their conversation. Already? Spider Monkey asked in surprise. I thought Ferros was 2 days away. That's not Ferros, Nami shouted up to them. It's a small trading post. We can resupply there before continuing. Spider Monkey and Luffy descended to the main deck where the crew was gathering. Ben transformed back to human form as they approached. We'll dock for the night, Nami was explaining. Get fresh supplies, maybe gather information about Ferros Island. And get a hot meal that isn't ship's rations, Sanji added. No offense to my own cooking, but fresh ingredients make all the difference. The trading post turned out to be a small island with a bustling port town. Ships of various sizes were docked in the harbor, from small fishing vessels to medium-sized merchant ships. Notably absent were any marine vessels, much to everyone's relief. We should keep a low profile, Robin suggested as they prepared to disembark. The Marines from G9 might have spread word about us. Agreed, Nami said. Small groups, casual clothes, nothing that screams pirate. They split into teams, Sanji, Chopper, and Brook would handle supplies, Frankie and Usopp would look for mechanical parts, Nami and Robin would gather information, while Luffy, Zoro, and Ben would explore the town for any signs of trouble. What about Kronos? Ben asked before leaving. I've secured his cell with sea stone locks, Frankie assured him. He's not going anywhere. Plus, I've booby-trapped the brig. Anyone tries to break him out, they'll get a nasty surprise. Satisfied with the arrangements, Ben joined Luffy and Zoro as they headed into town. The port was lively despite the late hour, with shops and food stalls still open to serve the sailors and travelers. Food first, Luffy insisted, making a beeline for a barbecue stand. Is he always this focused on eating? Ben asked Zoro. Always, the swordsman confirmed. Just be glad he's paying for his own food this time. They wandered through the town, Luffy enthusiastically trying every food stall they passed. Ben was amazed at the rubber man's capacity, he seemed to consume his body weight in meat and still remain hungry. As they turned down a side street, Ben noticed something odd, a group of people gathered around a man making some kind of speech. Curious, he moved closer to listen. The power to change your lives forever, the man was saying, holding up a small vial of glowing liquid. Essence of devil fruit, without the curse. Temporary power, no permanent side effects. Ben tensed. Guys, he whispered to Luffy and Zoro. That's exactly what we were investigating at the marine base. Zoro's hand moved to his swords. Could be a scam. Or it could be real, Ben countered. Either way, we should check it out. They edged closer to the gathering. The man at the center was dressed flamboyantly, with a top hat and a coat covered in strange symbols. Behind him stood two burly assistants guarding a small chest. Who among you is brave enough to sample this miracle? The man challenged the crowd. For just 100,000 berries, you can experience devil fruit power for 1 hour. A merchant stepped forward, counting out coins. I'll try it. If it works like you say, it's worth every berry. The showman took the money and handed over a vial of the glowing liquid. Drink it all at once for best effect. The merchant uncorked the vial and downed the contents. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his body began to glow faintly, and with a cry of surprise, his arms transformed into wings. It works, he exclaimed, flapping experimentally and rising a few feet off the ground. I can fly. The crowd gasped and murmured in excitement. More people began reaching for their money pouches. That shouldn't be possible, Zoro muttered. Devil fruit powers don't work like that. Unless. Ben's mind raced. Unless they've actually succeeded in extracting and stabilizing the essence. This could be connected to Kronos and Dr. Cypher. Luffy, unusually serious, stepped forward through the crowd. Hey, hat guy. Where'd you get that stuff? The showman faltered momentarily but recovered his composure. A trade secret, my rubber friend. But for you, perhaps a special discount? I'm not interested in buying, Luffy replied. I want to know who made it. The assistants moved protectively in front of their boss. The crowd, sensing tension, began to back away. I believe our business here is concluded for tonight, the showman announced, signaling his men to pack up the chest. Thank you all for your interest. Hold on, Ben said, stepping forward alongside Luffy. We just want to talk. I don't think so, one of the assistants growled, reaching inside his jacket. Before he could withdraw whatever weapon he was reaching for, Zoro appeared beside him, sword partially drawn. Bad idea, the swordsman advised quietly. The assistant froze, then slowly removed his empty hand from his jacket. Now, Ben continued, how about we have that conversation? The showman looked nervously between the three of them, then at the rapidly dispersing crowd. Not here, he said finally. Follow me. He led them to a small tavern at the end of the street, slipping into a private booth at the back. His assistants positioned themselves nearby, still watchful. My name is Marvello, the showman introduced himself once they were seated. I'm merely a distributor. I don't create the product. Then who does? Ben asked. Marvello hesitated, then leaned in closer. A scientist. Calls himself Dr. Cypher. He supplies various entrepreneurs with these samples to test in different markets. Ben exchanged meaningful glances with Luffy and Zoro. And where does he get the devil fruit essence? That I don't know, Marvelo insisted. All I know is he has a laboratory somewhere in the Grand Line. He contacts us when he has new products to distribute. How many distributors are there? Zoro asked. At least a dozen that I know of, spread across different islands. Luffy frowned. So he's selling devil fruit powers to anyone with enough money? Only temporary powers, Marvelo clarified. The effects wear off after an hour. That's why people are willing to pay, they get the ability without the permanent drawbacks like not being able to swim. And you don't see anything wrong with this? Ben asked incredulously. Marvelo shrugged. It's just business. Nobody gets hurt. Except the people whose devil fruits are being harvested, Zoro pointed out darkly. This made Marvelo shift uncomfortably. Don't ask about his methods. When's your next delivery scheduled? Ben pressed. 3 days from now, at Ferros Island. Marvelo's eyes widened as he realized he'd said too much. Look, I've told you what I know. Can I go now? Luffy stood up. Yeah. But you should find a new job. This one's gonna disappear soon. Outside the tavern, the three regrouped to discuss what they'd learned. Cypher's definitely going to Ferros Island, Ben summarized. And he's already mass-producing devil fruit essence. But only temporary effects, Zoro noted. He hasn't perfected it yet. Which is probably why he needs whatever's in those ruins, Ben concluded. Just like Kronos. Luffy pounded his fist into his palm. Then we need to get there first. They hurried back to the Thousand Sunny to share their discovery with the others. By the time they arrived, the rest of the crew had already returned, and Nami and Robin had news of their own. There's a marine research vessel that left here yesterday, headed for Ferros Island, Nami reported. The locals say it was carrying a high-ranking scientist. Cypher, Ben confirmed. We just met one of his distributors in town. He's selling temporary devil fruit powers in vials. Robin's expression grew grave. Then our situation is more urgent than we realized. If Cypher reaches the ruins first. We won't let that happen, Luffy declared. Frankie. Is the ship ready? Stocked and prepared, Captain. Frankie confirmed. We can leave immediately. Then set sail for Ferros Island. Luffy ordered. Full speed ahead. As the Thousand Sunny pulled away from the trading post, Ben stood at the railing, watching the island recede into the distance. The night was clear, stars reflecting on the dark water like scattered diamonds. Penny for your thoughts? Nami asked, joining him. Just thinking about how complicated this has become, Ben admitted. I came here chasing one villain, and now we're in a race against a whole organization. Welcome to our world, Nami said with a smile. Nothing's ever simple when you sail with the Straw Hat Pirates. I've noticed, Ben laughed. But I wouldn't have it any other way. You guys remind me that being a hero isn't just about powers or fighting, it's about doing the right thing, no matter how difficult. Is that what you are back home? A hero? Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. I try to be. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I mess up. But I never stop trying. That's all anyone can do, Nami said softly. Try their best with whatever abilities they have. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Eventually, Nami excused herself to check their course, leaving Ben alone with his thoughts. Tomorrow they would reach Ferros Island and whatever awaited them in its ancient ruins. Ben didn't know what to expect, but with the Omnitrix on his wrist and the Straw Hat Pirates by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges came their way. Little did he know just how dangerous those challenges would be. Dawn broke with unusual colors, streaks of green and purple cutting through the normal orange and gold of sunrise. Ben, who had taken the last watch shift, noticed it first. Guys, he called out. Is the sky supposed to look like that? Nami emerged from her cabin, took one look at the horizon, and frowned deeply. No, it's not. Wake everyone up. Now. Within minutes, the entire crew had gathered on deck, staring at the increasingly strange sky. The colors had intensified, swirling in patterns that defied natural weather systems. What is it? Chopper asked nervously. Some kind of Grand Line phenomenon. Robin shook her head. I've never seen anything like this in all my travels. Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling to an alien that might help. Let me check it out. He transformed in a flash of green light into a moth-like alien with large wings. Big chill, he announced, then took to the air, flying toward the disturbed section of sky. As he approached, he felt a strange energy washing over him, similar to what he'd experienced during Kronos' dimensional experiment. He returned to the ship quickly, transforming back to human. It's dimensional energy. The same kind Kronos was messing with, but on a much larger scale. And it's coming from the direction of Ferros Island, Frankie noted grimly. Someone's activated something there, Ben concluded. We need to hurry. Luffy pointed forward determinedly. Frankie. Coup de burst. We don't have enough cola for a full burst, the shipwright warned. It'll get us closer but not all the way there. Do it, Luffy ordered. Every minute counts now. The Thousand Sunny's special propulsion system activated, launching the ship forward with tremendous force. They covered a significant distance before the burst gave out, leaving them still several miles from their destination. But Ferros Island was now visible on the horizon, and above it, a swirling vortex of energy reached from the island into the sky, creating the unnatural colors they'd observed. That doesn't look good, Usopp said, lowering his telescope. I can see ships around the island too. Marine vessels. Cypher beat us there, Ben realized. He's already at the ruins. Nami checked the wind. This is the fastest we can go with natural wind. We'll reach the island in about an hour. Too long, Luffy declared. He turned to Ben. Can any of your aliens get us there faster? Ben considered his options. Not all of us at once. But maybe. He activated the Omnitrix again, transforming into a tall, plant-like alien. Wild vine. Long, vine-like appendages extended from his body. I can stretch pretty far. I could grab the island and pull us toward it. Worth a try, Zoro agreed. Wildvine extended his appendages to their maximum length, but the island remained just out of reach. Too far still. What about a combination? Robin suggested. Luffy can stretch too. Luffy immediately understood. He moved to the front of the ship and stretched his arms out as far as possible. Wildvine wrapped a vine around Luffy's extended hands, effectively doubling their reach. Got it. Wildvine announced as his enhanced reach allowed him to grab onto a rocky outcropping of the island. Now pull. Together, Luffy and Wildvine retracted their extended limbs, pulling the Thousand Sunny rapidly toward the island. The ship cut through the water at unprecedented speed, leaving a massive wake behind it. Everyone brace for arrival. Nami shouted as they approached the shore much faster than intended. The Sunny skidded onto the beach with a grinding halt, digging a trench in the sand. Wildvine transformed back to Ben, both he and Luffy collapsing in temporary exhaustion from the effort. Nice teamwork, Luffy grinned, recovering quickly in typical Rubberman fashion. Ben gave a thumbs up, catching his breath. Let's not make a habit of it, though. The crew disembarked quickly, gazing up at the energy vortex that now loomed directly overhead. The air hummed with power, and occasional lightning-like discharges leapt from the vortex to the ground. The ruins must be at the vortex's center, Robin concluded, pointing to a path that led uphill from the beach. We should hurry. What about the marine ships? Chopper asked worriedly. They're docked on the other side of the island, Usopp reported after scouting with his telescope. We have a head start from this position. Then let's move, Ben said, already starting up the path. The journey through the dense jungle was challenging. The path was overgrown and occasionally disappeared entirely, forcing them to cut their way through. Strange wildlife scattered at their approach, animals that seemed somehow affected by the dimensional energy, sporting unusual colors or extra limbs. The energy is changing this place, Robin observed. Altering the natural life forms. Like radiation? Ben asked, remembering similar effects from encounters with alien technology back home. Similar, but more directed, Robin replied. Almost as if it's experimenting with different biological forms. After an hour of climbing, they emerged from the jungle into a clearing. Before them stood the ruins of Ferros, an ancient city built of white stone, partially reclaimed by nature. At its center, a massive pyramid-like structure reached toward the sky, and from its peak, the energy vortex spiraled upward. There. Sanji pointed to movement near the pyramid. Marines. Sure enough, a group of uniformed soldiers had established a perimeter around the central structure. Equipment and tents surrounded it, suggesting they'd been there for some time. I don't see Cypher, Ben said, scanning the area. He must be inside the pyramid, Robin suggested. That's where the energy is originating from. Luffy cracked his knuckles. Then that's where we're going. We can't just charge in, Nami cautioned. There are at least 30 Marines down there. Then we need a distraction, Zoro said, drawing his swords. Ben activated the Omnitrix. I have just the alien for this. Green light flashed, and he transformed into a small, frog-like creature. Ditto. The crew looked at him skeptically. No offense, Usopp said, but how is a tiny frog going to distract all those Marines? Ditto grinned. Like this. He split into 2 identical copies, then 4, then 8, until 20 Dittos stood before the amazed pirates. We can all act independently, the Dittos explained in unison. Perfect for creating chaos in multiple places. Luffy's eyes sparkled with excitement. That's so cool. Can I have that power? Maybe later, the lead Ditto said. For now, half of us will create a distraction on the west side of the ruins. The rest of you circle around to the east and enter the pyramid while the Marines are busy. Good plan, Nami agreed. Just be careful. Always am, all the Dittos replied simultaneously, then winked. The Ditto clones raced off toward the west side of the ruins, while the Straw Hats and the original Ditto crept around to the eastern approach. Within minutes, sounds of chaos erupted from the opposite side, explosions, shouting, and the unmistakable noise of Marines mobilizing to investigate. That's our cue, Robin whispered. Move quickly. They darted from cover to cover, approaching the pyramid from its least guarded side. A few Marines remained at the entrance, but Sanji and Zoro made quick work of them without raising an alarm. Inside the pyramid, cool darkness enveloped them. Ancient carvings covered the walls, illuminated by modern lighting equipment the Marines had installed. The passages sloped downward rather than up, revealing that much of the structure extended underground. These symbols, Robin murmured, examining the walls as they moved deeper. They're unlike anything I've seen before. Not quite Poneglyph script, but similar. Can you read them? Ben asked, having rejoined his Ditto clones and transformed back to human form. Partially. They speak of the fruit of worlds and power born of the void. Robin traced the symbols with her fingers. This confirms the theory, devil fruits came from another dimension. They continued deeper, following the increasing pulse of energy that grew stronger with each level they descended. The modern lighting eventually gave way to an eerie glow emanating from the walls themselves, stones that shimmered with an inner light. The whole place is charged with dimensional energy, Ben observed. It's like a massive battery. Finally, they reached a vast chamber at the heart of the pyramid. The ceiling soared above them, and in the center stood an elaborate apparatus, part ancient stone construction, part modern technology. Dr. Cypher stood at a control panel, directing a team of scientists as they made adjustments. The group ducked behind a large column, observing undetected. "What is that thing?" Nami whispered. "It looks like a more advanced version of Kronos' device," Ben replied. "But much, much bigger." The apparatus surrounded a stone altar, on which sat a single devil fruit, larger and more intricately patterned than any they'd seen before. Tubes and wires connected it to the machinery, which in turn linked to the ceiling where the energy vortex originated. "They're extracting its power," Robin realized. "But that fruit, it's unlike any known devil fruit." "Because it's not just a devil fruit," came a voice from behind them. "It's the original fruit." They whirled to find Dr. Cypher standing there, flanked by Marines with weapons trained on them. His partly mechanical face gleamed in the strange light. "Dr. Cypher," Ben acknowledged, tensing for a fight. "Ben Tennyson. And the Straw Hat Pirates." Cypher's mechanical eye whirred as it focused on them. "I've been expecting you. Though I admit, you arrived sooner than anticipated." "What are you doing here?" Luffy demanded, his fists clenched. "Making history," Cypher replied calmly. "Or rather, rediscovering it. This facility was created during the Void Century to harness interdimensional energy, the same energy that created the very first devil fruit." He gestured to the altar. "That is the original fruit, preserved for centuries in a state of suspended animation. Every devil fruit in existence is derived from its power, diluted and specialized over generations. And you're extracting its essence," Ben surmised, "to create more powerful versions of your temporary devil fruit formulas." "Initially, yes," Cypher admitted. "But Professor Kronos helped me see a greater potential. By combining the original fruit's essence with his dimensional technology, we can create a permanent gateway between dimensions, accessing unlimited power and knowledge." "You're working with Kronos?" Zoro asked, hand on his swords. "Was working with him," Cypher corrected. "Until you captured him. But fortunately, he shared enough of his research that I could continue alone." Ben activated the Omnitrix. "Whatever you're doing, it's destabilizing this entire dimension. You need to shut it down." "On the contrary," Cypher replied. "The process is working exactly as intended. The vortex is a dimensional anchor point, the first of many that will allow controlled travel between worlds." "Controlled by who?" Robin challenged. "The world government. By those with the vision to use it properly," Cypher said vaguely. "Now, I'm afraid I can't allow you to interfere further." He pressed a button on his wrist device. The Marines raised their weapons, but before they could fire, a tremendous explosion rocked the chamber. The ceiling cracked, debris raining down between the straw hats and Cypher. "What the?" Cypher looked up in confusion. Through the new hole in the ceiling descended a familiar figure in a hastily repaired exoskeleton. "Kronos!" Ben exclaimed. "How did you escape?" "You pirates really should upgrade your cell security," Kronos replied smugly. "Basic quantum lock disruptors are child's play." "You're too late, Professor," Cypher called out. "The process is already underway." "I don't need your help anymore, Doctor," Kronos replied coldly. "Just the fruit." He aimed a device at the altar, firing a beam that encased the original fruit in a force field. With another press of a button, the fruit levitated toward him. "Stop him!" Cypher ordered his Marines, who redirected their weapons toward Kronos. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Marines fired at Kronos, who deflected their shots with his exoskeleton's shields. Cypher rushed to his control panel, attempting to stabilize the extraction process now interrupted by the fruit's removal. The Straw Hats seized the opportunity. Luffy immediately launched himself at Cypher, while Zoro and Sanji engaged the Marines. Robin used her powers to restrain several scientists who were attempting to flee. Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix, transforming in a flash of green light. Echo, echo. The small, silicon-based alien with audio powers immediately split into 3 copies, each targeting a different area of the chamber. One Echo headed for the control panel, using his sonic screams to shatter the equipment. Another pursued Kronos, who was ascending back through the hole in the ceiling with the original fruit. The third stayed with the straw hats, helping to subdue the Marines. The vortex above began to destabilize as the control equipment failed. The entire pyramid shook with increasing violence. The dimensional anchor is collapsing. Cypher shouted over the noise. Without the fruit to stabilize it, the vortex will implode. What happens if it implodes? Nami asked, dodging falling debris. It creates a dimensional black hole, the Echo near the control panel explained. Sucking in everything around it before collapsing spacetime completely. That sounds bad. Usopp shrieked, firing his slingshot at Marines who were still fighting despite the danger. Luffy. We need to get out of here. Frankie called, supporting a section of ceiling that threatened to collapse on them. The Echo chasing Kronos returned, rejoining with his copies. Kronos escaped with the fruit. He's heading for the beach. Let him go, Luffy decided, punching one last Marine into a wall. We need to stop this vortex thing first. Ben transformed again, this time into his newest alien form. Celestialcipian. The cosmic-powered alien immediately rose to the center of the chamber, hands raised toward the destabilizing vortex. Everyone get out. Ben ordered, his voice reverberating with power. I'll contain the implosion. We're not leaving you. Luffy shouted back. You have to. Follow Kronos. Stop him from using the fruit. Ben's celestialcipian form began absorbing the wild dimensional energy, his body glowing brighter with each second. I'll catch up when I'm done here. Robin, understanding the gravity of the situation, pulled at Luffy's arm. He's right, Captain. We need to go now. Reluctantly, the Straw Hats retreated, fighting their way back up through the pyramid as the structure continued to shake around them. Cypher and his remaining Marines fled in the opposite direction, abandoning their equipment. Alone in the chamber, Ben concentrated all his celestialcipian power on containing the collapsing vortex. The dimensional energies fought against his control, wild and chaotic. It was like trying to hold back an ocean with bare hands. Outside, the Straw Hats emerged from the pyramid just as sections began to collapse behind them. The vortex above had transformed into a swirling black mass that seemed to devour light itself. Where's Kronos? Zoro demanded, scanning the ruins. There. Chopper pointed to a figure moving rapidly through the jungle toward the beach. After him. Luffy ordered. Ben will catch up. They raced after Kronos, the jungle path now considerably easier to navigate due to the damage caused by the professor's passage. When they reached the beach, they found Kronos attempting to launch a small craft, one he had apparently prepared as an escape vessel. The original fruit sat in a special containment unit at the boat's center, connected to a smaller version of the extraction device. It's over, Kronos. Luffy shouted, stretching his arm to grab the boat's edge before it could launch. Kronos turned, his exoskeleton powering up defensive measures. Stay back. You have no idea what's at stake. We know exactly what's at stake, Nami replied. Multiple dimensions at risk because of your experiments. You fools. I'm trying to save those dimensions. Kronos activated his equipment, which began drawing power from the original fruit. The implosion has already begun. Without a controlled dimensional bridge, the natural barriers between worlds will collapse entirely. Back at the pyramid, Ben struggled against the overwhelming force of the collapsing vortex. His celestialcipian form was powerful, but the dimensional energies were beyond anything he'd encountered before. He realized he couldn't stop the implosion, only contain it long enough for everyone to escape. With a final surge of effort, Ben compressed the vortex into a tight sphere, then encased it in a shell of cosmic energy. It would hold for minutes at most before exploding with catastrophic force. He fled the chamber, racing through the crumbling pyramid and out into the open air. The sky had turned completely black above the ruins, the light-devouring vortex now contained but still growing in power. Ben transformed back to human form, exhausted beyond measure, and stumbled toward the beach. He arrived to find the Straw Hats confronting Kronos, who had activated some kind of portal device using the original fruit's power. Ben! Chopper spotted him first, rushing to support him as he swayed on his feet. "We need to leave," Ben gasped. "The vortex. I couldn't stop it. Only contained it. It's going to explode." "How long do we have?" Robin asked urgently. "Minutes. Maybe less." Kronos overheard this exchange. "You see. There's no stopping it now. My portal is the only safe way out." Indeed, a swirling gateway had formed above his boat, showing glimpses of another world through its fluctuating surface. "Why should we trust you?" Sanji demanded. "Because we want the same thing, survival." Kronos retorted. "This portal leads to a safe dimension. We can all escape before this one is destroyed." Ben studied the portal with what little energy he had left. "He's telling the truth. That's a stable gateway." He looked at the original fruit powering it. "The fruit is acting as an anchor point, just like Cypher said." A distant explosion rocked the island as the pyramid began to collapse entirely. The contained vortex was breaking free. "We don't have time to argue," Kronos shouted. "Get in the boat or stay and be destroyed." Luffy looked to his crew, then to Ben. "What do you think? Is it safe?" Ben nodded weakly. "Safer than staying here." He glanced at the Thousand Sunny, beached nearby. "But we can't leave your ship." Frankie stepped forward. "Maybe we don't have to. If that fruit can anchor a portal." He turned to Kronos. "Can you expand the portal to fit the Sunny through?" Kronos calculated quickly. "Yes, but it would drain the fruit completely. We'd be stranded wherever we end up." "Better than dead," Nami pointed out pragmatically. "Fine." Kronos adjusted his equipment. "Get your ship ready. You have 2 minutes." The crew raced to the Sunny, quickly preparing it for emergency launch. Frankie activated the ship's systems while Usopp and Chopper secured loose items. Ben, regaining some strength, helped where he could. Kronos expanded the portal as promised, the gateway growing until it was large enough for the Thousand Sunny to pass through. The effort clearly strained both his equipment and the original fruit, which began to wither as its power was drained. "Now!" Kronos shouted as another explosion rocked the island. "The vortex is breaking containment." Frankie engaged the Sunny's engines, driving the ship directly toward the portal. Kronos abandoned his smaller craft, leaping aboard the pirate ship at the last moment before it entered the swirling gateway. The sensation of passing through was indescribable, like being simultaneously stretched and compressed, turned inside out and reassembled. Everyone aboard clutched whatever was nearest for support as reality itself seemed to bend around them. Then, suddenly, they were through, emerging into calm waters under a clear blue sky. The portal snapped shut behind them with a thunderclap of displaced air. Silence fell across the deck as everyone tried to process what had just happened. They were alive, and the Sunny was intact. But where, or when, were they now? Ben was the first to recognize their surroundings. His heart leapt into his throat as he stared at the skyline visible in the distance. That's San Francisco," he whispered, pointing to the unmistakable silhouette of the Golden Gate Bridge. "We're in my world." The Straw Hats gathered at the railing, staring in wonder at the modern city before them. Buildings of glass and steel reached toward the sky, and strange flying machines, airplanes, Ben knew, soared overhead. "Your world?" Luffy asked, eyes wide with excitement. "We're in your dimension." "Looks like it," Ben confirmed, a mix of emotions washing over him. He was home, but what about his new friends? They were now stranded in his dimension, just as he had been in theirs. Kronos collapsed to the deck, his exoskeleton sparking and failing. The original fruit in his device had withered to a dry husk, its power completely expended. It worked, he murmured, almost to himself. A controlled dimensional jump. At what cost? Robin asked him. An entire dimension could have been destroyed in that implosion. Kronos shook his head weakly. No. The implosion would have been contained to that island. Destructive, yes, but not world-ending. And you knew this all along? Ben demanded. Theoretical knowledge, Kronos admitted. I couldn't be certain until I saw your celestialsapian form contain it. Nami looked from the strange city back to Ben. So what happens now? We're stuck in your world. Before Ben could answer, a familiar voice called out from nearby. Ben. Ben. Ben turned to see a small craft approaching the Sunny. Standing at its bow was a teenage girl with red hair and a stern expression, alongside an older man in a Hawaiian shirt. Gwen. Grandpa Max. Ben shouted, waving frantically. Friends of yours? Luffy asked with a grin. Ben nodded, suddenly realizing the absurdity of the situation he was about to explain. Yeah. My family. He looked at the pirate crew, his new friends from another dimension, and couldn't help but laugh. This is going to be interesting. As Gwen and Grandpa Max's boat pulled alongside the Thousand Sunny, Ben realized that his adventure was far from over. In fact, a new chapter was just beginning. Chapter 3, Heroes Across Dimensions, Ben. Gwen leaped from Grandpa Max's boat onto the Thousand Sunny's deck, nearly knocking Ben over with her hug. Where have you been? You disappeared for days. Long story, Ben replied, returning the hug before turning to greet Grandpa Max as he climbed aboard. Like, really long. Max Tennyson surveyed the strange ship and its even stranger crew with the calm assessment of someone who'd seen plenty of unusual things in his life. His eyes lingered on Chopper, Brooke, and Frankie before settling on Kronos, who sat slumped against the mast. Professor Kronos, he nodded. I see you're involved in this. Why am I not surprised? You know him? Ben asked, surprised. The plumbers have a file on him, Max explained. Interdimensional troublemaker. Several agencies have been tracking his experiments. Luffy pushed forward, extending his hand to Max. I'm Monkey D. Luffy. I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Max blinked but shook the rubber man's hand. Max Tennyson. Retired plumber and grandfather. These are the Straw Hat Pirates, Ben explained. They're from another dimension. They helped me when I was stranded in their world. He quickly introduced each crew member, who responded in their characteristic ways, Sanji bowing dramatically to Gwen, Zoro giving a curt nod, Nami waving friendly, Usopp launching into an exaggerated tale of their adventures. Pirates? Gwen raised an eyebrow. Like, actual pirates with a ship and everything? We don't have a flag right now, Chopper explained earnestly, but we usually sail under a Jolly Roger with a straw hat on it. Gwen stared at the talking reindeer, momentarily speechless. Oh my God, you're adorable, she finally managed, kneeling to look at him more closely. Shut up. Calling me adorable doesn't make me happy, you jerk. Chopper protested while doing a happy wiggle dance. Well, Max said pragmatically, we should probably get this ship somewhere less visible. Having an ancient sailing vessel appear suddenly in San Francisco Bay is already drawing attention. He was right. In the distance, several boats were changing course to investigate the sudden appearance of the Thousand Sunny. There's a secluded cove north of here, Max continued. We can anchor there and figure out our next steps. Works for us, Nami agreed, already assessing the nautical charts Max had brought. Just point the way. As they set course for the hidden cove, Ben brought Gwen and Grandpa Max up to speed on everything, Kronos' dimensional accident, meeting the Straw Hats, the Devil Fruits, and their narrow escape from the collapsing ruins. So they're completely stranded here? Gwen asked, glancing at the pirates who were busy maneuvering the ship. No way home. The original fruit's power is depleted, Ben confirmed. And without it, we don't have a stable anchor point for dimensional travel. Grandpa Max stroked his chin thoughtfully. Maybe not. The plumbers have been working on dimensional technology too. Nothing as advanced as what Kronos developed, but perhaps with his knowledge combined with theirs. Kronos laughed weakly from where he sat. You want my help? After all this? You created this mess, Ben reminded him. The least you can do is help fix it. Before Kronos could respond, Frankie called out from the helm. Land ahead. Is this your secret cove? The Thousand Sunny rounded a rocky outcropping to reveal a perfect natural harbor, hidden from view by tall cliffs and dense trees. A small beach offered access to land, and the water was deep enough for the ship to anchor safely. This is it, Max confirmed. Used to be a plumber emergency dock. It's off all the official maps and shielded from most scanning technology. They anchored the Sunny and gathered on deck to discuss their situation. The immediate question was what to do with Kronos. He needs to face justice, Gwen insisted. He endangered multiple dimensions with his experiments. Justice in this dimension means little to me, Zorro pointed out. Our concern is finding a way back to our world. And what about Dr. Cypher? Robin added. He's still in our world, possibly with knowledge of how to create more dimensional portals. If he succeeds where Kronos failed. The implications hung heavily in the air. First things first, Max decided. We secure Kronos at a plumber facility. Then we focus on finding a way to send you all home. What's a plumber? Luffy asked, confused. Like the people who fix toilets? Ben laughed. No, the plumbers are an intergalactic peacekeeping organization. They handle alien problems on Earth and beyond. Grandpa Max used to be one of their top agents. Still have clearance though, Max added with a wink. Some privileges don't expire. Aliens? Nami echoed. You mean there are more worlds beyond even our 2 dimensions? Thousands, Ben confirmed. Maybe millions. I've transformed into aliens from all over the galaxy. This sparked an animated discussion among the pirates, with Usopp and Chopper particularly excited about the possibility of space travel and alien life. We should get moving, Max interrupted gently. I've already alerted the plumbers about our situation. They're sending a transport for Kronos and offered temporary accommodations for all of you. What about the Sunny? Frankie asked protectively. I'm not leaving her unguarded. The cove is secure, Max assured him. And I can arrange for surveillance drones if it makes you feel better. Frankie hesitated but nodded. Guess we don't have much choice. They prepared to leave, gathering essential belongings and securing the ship. Kronos, too weak to resist, was placed under guard by Zorro. The professor's exoskeleton had completely failed, leaving him just a frail scientist without his technological advantages. Within an hour, a sleek aircraft descended silently into the cove. Its design was like nothing the Straw Hats had ever seen, no visible propellers or engines, yet it hovered perfectly over the water. Whoa! Luffy's eyes sparkled with excitement. Is that a flying fish machine? Something like that, Ben smiled. It's plumber tech. Anti-gravity propulsion. The pirates boarded the aircraft with varying levels of enthusiasm and apprehension. Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper bounced around examining everything, while Robin calmly observed the technology with scholarly interest. Nami worried about leaving the ship despite assurances, and Zorro simply found a corner to nap in, unimpressed by the advanced technology. As they flew toward the hidden plumber base, Ben sat beside Sanji, who was staring out the window at the city below. Different from your world, huh? Ben asked. Sanji nodded, lighting a cigarette only to have it immediately extinguished by an automatic fire suppression system. He glared at the ceiling. Very different. Your buildings reach the clouds without devil fruit powers or giants to build them. Technology instead of magic, Ben explained. Though some of our tech would probably seem like magic to you guys. Does your world have all blue? Sanji asked suddenly. All blue. A legendary sea where all four oceans meet. Where fish from every part of the world can be found. Sanji's voice took on a dreamy quality. Finding it is my dream. Ben thought for a moment. We have oceans that connect, but nothing legendary like that. Our world is more mapped out. Fewer mysteries. That sounds boring, Sanji decided with a slight smile. It has its moments, Ben replied, glancing at the Omnitrix. But yeah, sometimes I wish there were more unexplored places left. The aircraft descended toward what looked like an ordinary hillside. As they approached, a section of the hill slid open to reveal a hangar built into the rock. They landed smoothly inside, the entrance ceiling behind them. Welcome to Plumber Base 7G, announced a voice over the speakers. Please remain seated until the decontamination process is complete. A soft blue light swept through the cabin, scanning everyone aboard. Decontamination complete. Unknown biological signatures detected. Security protocol activated. The doors opened to reveal a dozen armed plumbers in full tactical gear, weapons trained on the aircraft. Easy, Max called out, stepping forward with his hands raised. They're with me. Authorization Tennyson, Alpha, 7. A senior officer stepped forward, checking something on her wrist computer. Confirmed, Magister Tennyson. Apologies for the welcome, but our sensors detected several non-terrestrial life forms aboard. That would be our guests, Max explained. Interdimensional travelers. They need temporary asylum while we sort out their situation. The plumbers lowered their weapons but remained alert as the Straw Hats disembarked. Brooks' appearance caused several to raise their weapons again until Max assured them he was friendly. Yo-ho-ho-ho. I seem to have caused a stir, Brooke observed cheerfully. Though I'm just skin and bones, except I don't have any skin. Skull joke. No one laughed except Luffy, who found it hilarious as always. Kronos is secured, reported a plumber who had taken the professor into custody. Medical is checking him now, then we'll move him to containment. I want to speak with him once he's settled, Max requested. He might be our best source of information on interdimensional travel. They were escorted deeper into the base, which expanded into a vast complex of laboratories, training facilities, and living quarters. The technology on display amazed even Robin, who normally maintained her cool demeanor regardless of circumstances. This is all hidden beneath your city, she asked, examining a holographic star map as they passed. The public has no idea we exist, Gwen explained. Earth isn't ready for full disclosure about aliens and other dimensions yet. Like how the world government hides the void century, Robin murmured. Interesting parallel. They were shown to a section of guest quarters, surprisingly comfortable rooms that had been quickly prepared for their arrival. The areas were designed for various alien physiologies, so accommodating a skeleton, a cyborg, and a reindeer posed no particular challenge. There's a briefing in 1 hour, their escort informed them. Magister Tennyson requests your presence to discuss possible solutions to your situation. Once they were alone, the pirates gathered in the common area of their quarters to process everything. This place is amazing. Chopper exclaimed. Their medical technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their security is solid too, Zoro noted, having professionally assessed their surroundings. Multiple layers, redundant systems. These plumbers know what they're doing. Do you think they can really help us get home? Nami asked, voicing the concern they all shared. If anyone can, it's Grandpa Max and the plumbers, Ben assured them. They deal with weird stuff all the time. What if we can't go back? Brooke asked quietly. What becomes of us then? The question hung heavily in the air. Despite the adventure of being in a new world, each of the Straw Hats had dreams and goals tied to their own dimension. Luffy couldn't become king of the pirates in a world without the Grand Line or the One Piece. Zoro couldn't challenge Mihawk to become the world's greatest swordsman. Nami's maps of their world would remain unfinished. We'll find a way, Luffy declared with characteristic confidence. We always do. An hour later, they gathered in a conference room where Max, Gwen, and several senior plumbers waited. Holographic displays showed complex equations and what appeared to be models of dimensional barriers. Thank you all for coming, Max began. Let me introduce Magister Labrid, our dimensional research specialist. A blue-skinned alien nodded to the group. I've been studying the readings from your arrival. Fascinating breach pattern, never seen anything quite like it. We've debriefed Professor Kronos, Max continued. Despite his reluctance, he's provided valuable insights into his dimensional travel technology. Can you send us home? Luffy asked directly, never one for beating around the bush. Magister Labrid hesitated. Possibly. The challenge isn't creating a dimensional portal, we've done that on small scales before. The challenge is targeting the specific dimension you came from. There are infinite possibilities, and without a proper anchor point. Like the original fruit, Robin surmised. Exactly. Without something connected to your dimension, we're essentially shooting in the dark. What about us? Usopp suggested. We're from that dimension. Couldn't we act as the anchor? That's, actually a brilliant suggestion, Labrid admitted, looking impressed. Using biological markers as dimensional coordinates. It's theoretical, but it might work. How long would it take to develop? Ben asked. Days, maybe weeks, Labrid replied. We'd need to build a new portal generator calibrated to their specific dimensional frequency. Sanji blew out a frustrated breath. So we're stuck here for now. I'm afraid so, Max confirmed. But you're welcome to stay as our guests. And in the meantime, perhaps Ben could show you around our world. Luffy immediately perked up. Like an adventure. I'm in. The meeting continued with technical discussions about dimensional barriers and portal physics that went over most of their heads. Eventually, they were dismissed while the plumbers began work on the portal technology. As they left the conference room, Ben turned to the pirates. So, who wants a tour of San Francisco? The next morning found the Straw Hats attempting to blend in with Earth fashion, with mixed results. The plumbers had provided clothing, but some crew members adapted better than others. Brooke, for instance, was impossible to disguise completely, so they settled for a hoodie, sunglasses, and the cover story that he was wearing an elaborate costume. This is so tight, Luffy complained, tugging at the jeans and t-shirt he'd been given. How do people fight in these? You're not supposed to be fighting, Nami reminded him, looking quite comfortable in her new outfit. We're tourists, remember? Ben and Gwen led their unusual group through San Francisco's streets, trying to act natural despite the stares they received. Chopper had the easiest disguise, in his smallest form, he simply looked like a strange stuffed animal carried by Robin. This is a shopping district, Gwen explained as they walked down a busy street lined with stores. People come here to buy clothes, electronics, food. Like a market, Sanji nodded, peering into restaurant windows with professional interest. Exactly, but with fixed prices, Ben added. No haggling. That's no fun, Nami pouted. They stopped for lunch at a food court, where the variety of options amazed the pirates. Luffy wanted to try everything, while Sanji critically evaluated each dish, asking detailed questions about ingredients and preparation methods that the cashiers couldn't answer. These hamburgers are amazing. Luffy declared, mouth full. Almost as good as meat. It is meat, you idiot, Sanji sighed. After lunch, they visited a technology store where Frankie and Usopp nearly had to be dragged away from the robotics section. Robin found a bookstore and disappeared inside for almost an hour, emerging with a stack of history books. "Your world has fascinating conflicts," she commented. "So many wars over resources and ideologies rather than territories. Is that different from your world?" Gwen asked. "Our conflicts tend to be more personal," Robin explained. "Emperors battling for dominance, pirates seeking freedom, the world government maintaining control. The scale is different." As the day progressed, they attracted increasing attention. Luffy couldn't help showing off his rubber abilities when excited, stretching to grab things or bounce when surprised. Brook's disguise slipped several times, revealing glimpses of bone that passers-by assumed were an elaborate costume. Zoro almost got into a confrontation with a street performer who challenged him to a mock sword fight. "Maybe we should head back," Ben suggested after Chopper accidentally spoke in public, causing a child to scream in delight about a talking teddy bear. They were making their way toward the prearranged pickup point when the ground suddenly shook beneath their feet. At first, they thought it might be an earthquake, common enough in San Francisco, but the rumbling was followed by an explosion several blocks away. "That's not normal," Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. "You guys should get to safety while I check it out." "Are you kidding?" Luffy grinned, cracking his knuckles. "We're coming too." Before Ben could argue, a massive creature rounded the corner ahead, a hulking, rhinoceros-like alien with crystalline growths protruding from its armored hide. It charged down the street, sending cars flying and pedestrians running in panic. "What is that thing?" Usopp squeaked, hiding behind Frankie. "Rhinoc," Ben identified the creature. "From the Andromeda Galaxy. Extremely territorial and nearly indestructible. What's it doing on Earth?" The answer came in the form of a familiar face. Dr. Cypher emerged from the dust cloud behind the creature, his mechanical parts now more extensive than before. He held a device that seemed to be controlling the Rhinoc. "The dimensional travelers," he called out upon seeing them. "Perfect timing." "Cypher." Ben gasped. "How did you get to my dimension?" "I followed your energy signature, of course," Cypher replied as if it were obvious. "When the pyramid collapsed, I managed to salvage enough equipment to create a one-way portal. Primitive, but effective." "Why are you here?" Robin demanded. "What do you want?" Cypher gestured to the rampaging alien. "I'm continuing my research. Your dimension has such fascinating life forms, Ben Tennyson. The energy patterns of this creature are remarkably similar to devil fruits, suggesting a common interdimensional origin." "So you're what, collecting alien specimens?" Ben asked incredulously. "For study, yes. And this is just the beginning." Cypher held up another device, one that looked disturbingly like Kronos' dimensional technology. "With the right calibration, I can open portals to countless dimensions, extracting powers from across the multiverse." "We can't let him do that," Gwen said quietly to Ben. "If he starts punching holes in dimensional walls." "I know," Ben nodded grimly. He turned to the Straw Hats. "Feel like helping me stop another dimensional crisis?" "That's what we do best." Luffy grinned. "Pirates to the rescue." Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix, transforming in a flash of green light. Humongosaur. The massive dinosaur-like alien roared, matching the Rhinoc in size. The Straw Hat sprang into action alongside him. Luffy stretched his arms, launching himself toward Cypher. Zoro drew his swords and charged the Rhinoc from the flank. Sanji leaped into the air, his leg igniting with the energy of his fighting spirit. Cypher seemed surprised by their coordinated attack. "Fascinating. You formed an alliance across dimensions." He pressed something on his control device, and the Rhinoc roared, charging directly at Humongosaur. The two massive beings collided with earth-shaking force. Humongosaur grabbed the Rhinoc's horns, trying to stop its charge, but the creature's momentum drove him backward through a building wall. "We need to get that control device," Gwen called out, her hands glowing with mana energy. She cast bolts of magical force at Cypher, who deflected them with an energy shield built into his mechanical arm. Robin crossed her arms in her characteristic pose. Cease fleur. 6 arms sprouted from Cypher's body, grabbing at the control device. However, an electrical discharge from his mechanical parts forced the phantom limbs to disappear. Devil Fruit abilities, Cypher noted with clinical interest. Paramecia type, if I'm not mistaken. Limited but versatile. Usopp positioned himself on a nearby car, taking careful aim with his slingshot. Special attack, Green Star. The projectile exploded near Cypher, sprouting instant vegetation that wrapped around his legs. While Cypher was distracted, Nami swung her Climatact, generating a localized thundercloud above him. Thunder Tempo. Lightning struck down, but Cypher's mechanical parts absorbed the electricity. You're only making me stronger, he laughed, using the absorbed energy to enhance his shield. Meanwhile, Humungosaur wrestled with the Rhinoc, the 2 titans destroying half a city block in their struggle. Frankie joined the fray, firing his radical beam at the creature's exposed flanks, while Brook used his Soul Solid to freeze sections of its crystalline growths. We need a plan. Chopper shouted, transforming into his heavy point to help evacuate civilians from the battle zone. Humungosaur managed to flip the Rhinoc onto its side, momentarily stunning it. The control device. He called out in Ben's voice. If we destroy it, the Rhinoc might calm down. Luffy, who had been testing Cypher's defenses with rapid-fire punches, nodded in understanding. He stretched his arm back an impossible distance. Gum gum. Red Hawk. His fist ignited with flame as it accelerated toward Cypher. The attack connected with devastating force, shattering Cypher's shield and sending him crashing into a storefront. The control device flew from his hand, skidding across the pavement. I got it. Gwen called, racing toward the device. But Cypher recovered quickly, firing an energy beam that cut off her approach. No one touches that, he snarled, his mechanical eye glowing ominously. It's linked to more than just the Rhinoc. As if on cue, the air around them began to ripple and tear. Small dimensional portals opened randomly across the battlefield, unstable windows into other worlds. Through one, a desert landscape was visible, through another, an ocean of strange purple liquid, through a third, a cityscape of crystalline towers. The device is destabilizing. Humungosaur realized, transforming back to Ben in a flash of green light. He's linked it to his dimensional technology. Precisely. Cypher confirmed, retrieving the device despite his injuries. And if it's destroyed, the resulting dimensional cascade could tear this entire city apart. He backed away, using the threat as leverage. Stay back, all of you. The Rhinoc, momentarily free from control, thrashed about in confusion before focusing on Cypher, recognizing him as its captor. It charged toward the scientist with renewed fury. No. Cypher tried to reactivate the control signal, but the device had been damaged in the fall. Ben quickly activated the Omnitrix again, transforming into a new alien form. Feedback. The plug-like alien could absorb and redirect energy, exactly what they needed. Everyone clear the area. Feedback ordered, racing toward Cypher and the approaching Rhinoc. The Straw Hats and Gwen pulled back, helping evacuate remaining civilians. Feedback reached Cypher just as the Rhinoc was about to trample him, pushing the scientist aside and facing the creature head-on. Let's see if you like a taste of your own energy, Feedback taunted, extending his plug-like fingers toward the Rhinoc. As the creature charged, Feedback absorbed the kinetic energy of its attack, then redirected it in a powerful blast that knocked the Rhinoc back. While the creature was stunned, Feedback turned to Cypher's device. Now for the real problem. He connected his plugs to the dimensional technology, beginning to drain its power. Stop. You don't know what you're doing. Cypher protested, trying to pull the device away. I know exactly what I'm doing, Feedback replied confidently. I'm containing your dimensional meltdown. The unstable portals around them began to fluctuate as feedback drained their energy. Some collapsed entirely, while others stabilized momentarily before shrinking. "It's working," Gwen called out. "The dimensional rifts are closing." But one portal, larger than the others, suddenly expanded instead of shrinking. Through it, they could see a familiar ocean, the grand line of the One Piece world, recognizable by its unique cloud patterns and sea kings in the distance. "That's our world," Nami exclaimed, pointing excitedly. "The energy drainage must have accidentally stabilized that particular portal," Gwen theorized. The dimensional frequency matched perfectly. Cypher, seeing his plans collapsing, made a desperate lunge for his device. "I won't be stopped when I'm this close." Luffy intercepted him with a stretched arm, grabbing him by the collar. "You're done causing trouble." He pulled Cypher into a devastating punch that sent the scientist flying into a nearby car, unconscious. Feedback continued draining energy from the device, carefully modulating the flow to maintain the one stable portal while closing all others. "I don't know how long I can keep this open," he warned. "The power source is almost drained." The Straw Hats looked at the portal to their home dimension, then at Ben and Gwen, indecision clear on their faces. "You need to go," Feedback urged them. "This might be your only chance to get home." "But what about you?" Luffy asked, unexpectedly serious. "We just became friends." "And friends know when to say goodbye," Feedback replied, straining to maintain the portal. "Your adventures are in your world. Mine are here." Robin approached the portal, studying it carefully. The dimensional coordinates seem stable. "This definitely leads back to our world, specifically the Grand Line near Water 7, if I'm not mistaken." "All of you, go." Feedback insisted as the device in his hands began to spark dangerously. "I can't hold it much longer." The Straw Hats gathered their few belongings, prepared to jump through. But Luffy hesitated, looking back at Ben. "This isn't goodbye," the Rubber Man declared. "It's see you later." Because friends always find a way back to each other. Feedback smiled despite his strain. "I'd like that." One by one, the pirates leaped through the portal, first Nami and Usopp, then Sanji and Chopper, followed by Frankie carrying their supplies. Zoro gave a respectful nod before stepping through, and Brook played a quick farewell melody on his violin. Robin was the last to approach, placing a book in Gwen's hands. "A history of our world," she explained with a smile. "So you don't forget us." Then only Luffy remained, standing at the edge of the portal. "Ben Tennyson. Next time we meet, I'll be king of the pirates. And I'll have mastered the Omnitrix," Feedback promised. With a final grin and wave, Luffy jumped through the portal. The moment he crossed, Feedback could no longer maintain the stability. The portal collapsed with a tremendous thunderclap, the device in his hands shattering completely. Feedback transformed back to Ben, collapsing to his knees in exhaustion. Gwen rushed to his side, supporting him as they watched the last traces of interdimensional energy dissipate. "They made it," Ben said, more statement than question. "They did," Gwen confirmed. "I could feel the connection complete before it closed." In the distance, sirens wailed as local authorities finally approached the scene. The Rhinoc, without Cypher's control, had collapsed into a docile state, more confused than aggressive now. "What do we tell the police?" Gwen wondered, looking at the unconscious Cypher and the alien creature. "Nothing," came Grandpa Max's voice as a plumber vehicle pulled up beside them. "This just became a plumber matter." Within hours, the situation was contained. The plumbers took custody of both Cypher and the Rhinoc. Cleanup crews began repairing the damage using advanced technology that accelerated construction, and memory-altering devices ensured that witnesses remembered only a gas main explosion rather than an interdimensional battle. Back at the plumber base, Ben sat in the now-empty quarters that had briefly housed the Straw Hat Pirates. Scattered evidence of their presence remained, a cigarette but from Sanji, a medical textbook Chopper had been studying, a half-drawn map Nami had started of San Francisco Bay. You missed them already, Gwen observed from the doorway. Ben nodded. They were only here for 2 days, but, yeah. They were something special. Pirates from another dimension, Gwen mused, sitting beside him. Even for us, that's pretty out there. The weird thing is how well we all fit together, Ben said. Like we'd been friends forever. Luffy and his crew. They didn't care about the Omnitrix or my reputation or anything. They just accepted me. That's rare, Gwen agreed. So what now? Ben stood up, a determined look crossing his face. Now we make sure this doesn't happen again. Kronos and Cypher both proved that dimensional travel is possible, and dangerous. Someone needs to make sure the barriers stay strong. Sounds like a job for Ben 10, Gwen smiled. And the plumbers, Ben added. Grandpa Max is already talking about establishing a new division focused on dimensional security. Apparently, this isn't the first breach they've detected. They walked together toward the laboratory section where Magister Labrid was studying the remnants of Cypher's technology. Could we ever, visit them? Gwen asked hesitantly. Someday, maybe, Ben replied. Labrid thinks he might be able to recreate a stable portal using the dimensional coordinates he recorded during the battle. But it would take months, maybe years of work. Worth it though? Ben smiled, remembering Luffy's parting words. Definitely worth it. After all, friends always find a way back to each other. 1 month later, Ben stood on the deck of the Rust Bucket 3, Grandpa Max's advanced plumber ship, as it hovered invisibly over San Francisco Bay. Below, in the hidden cove where the Thousand Sunny had briefly anchored, a small memorial had been placed, a plaque bearing the Straw Hat Pirate's Jolly Roger, visible only to those who knew where to look. Ready for patrol? Max asked, joining him at the viewport. Ben nodded, the Omnitrix gleaming on his wrist. As a newly appointed dimensional security specialist for the plumbers, he now had official responsibility for monitoring potential breaches between worlds. Any unusual readings today? He asked. Nothing significant, Max replied. Though there was a small energy spike near Japan last night. Probably just background radiation, but we'll keep an eye on it. Ben smiled to himself. In the month since the Straw Hat's departure, he'd thrown himself into learning everything he could about dimensional physics, even enlisting Gwen's help with the more magical aspects of interdimensional travel. If there was a way to see his friends again, he would find it. The ship banked gently, beginning its patrol route around the planet. As Earth's continents passed below, Ben thought about how his perspective had changed. His world had always seemed big enough, with its countless alien species and threats. Now he knew it was just one reality among infinite possibilities, and somewhere out there, a crew of pirates was sailing toward their dreams. Ben said as they passed over the Pacific Ocean, Luffy once told me that being a pirate meant having the freedom to choose your own path. Sounds like a smart kid, Max nodded. I think I understand what he meant now. It's not about doing whatever you want, it's about having the courage to decide what matters most and pursuing it, no matter the odds. Max placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. That's what heroes do, Ben. Whether they're wielding the Omnitrix or sailing a pirate ship. As the Rust Bucket 3 continued its patrol, Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through his alien options thoughtfully. Among them was the Celestialcipian form he'd used to contain the dimensional vortex, a form with the power to alter reality itself. He hadn't used it since the Straw Hats left, partly out of caution, partly because he was still learning to control its immense powers. But someday, when he had mastered it completely. The ship's alarms suddenly blared, interrupting his thoughts. Dimensional breach detected, the computer announced. Quadrant 7, Atlantic Ocean. That's a big one, Max said, studying the readings. Energy signature unlike anything we've seen before. Ben smiled, the familiar rush of adventure flowing through him. Let's check it out. As the ship changed course, accelerating toward the anomaly, Ben couldn't help wondering if maybe, just maybe, a certain straw hat might be visible on the other side. After all, in a multiverse of infinite possibilities, some friends were simply destined to meet again. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.